different businesses that are actually kind of all lumped into that same thing, but it's easier just to.
Good on it.
Yeah. So, just giving you a heads up.
Appreciate it. Oh, probably.
Everybody's got a green microphone? Your light's on, Diane.
Unless I make anybody uncomfortable, I'm not putting
We're all
it
set
on.
to go.
We are live. All right. So let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Just for the people that are waiting in the wings here, it's going to be a little bit of a logistics. Obviously, with the 50 people rule and 6-foot distancing, it's going to be a little bit awkward to be able to proceed through this. But we're going to take it one item at a time and bring in people for that item. And when you're done, if you'd like, you may leave at that point. So that said, Twyla, roll call, and we'll go by you.
All right. Councillor Albert?
Here.
Councillor Colby?
Here.
Councillor Ganong?
Here.
Councillor LaRochelle?
Here.
Councillor Ward?
Yes.
Councillor Lunt?
Here.
And Councillor Fellows.
Here. Next, Twyla.
Next item is under good news and recognition, and we want to take a moment to jump off the agenda to present the town report. We've dedicated it this year to a very special man, Gordon Curtis, and his family is here. Debbie Starbird and David Curtis and Gordon Curtis, his brother, have arrived.
You said
Which one?
Carol Curtis.
Oh, yes, Carol. Carol.
Oh, they look just alike.
Well, they do kind of.
Actually.
So, yes, Carol Curtis is who we're dedicating this to. We chose the theme for nature, brown, because we know he's always outside, fishing, hunting, and that sort of thing. So this year's report is being dedicated to Carol Curtis. Carol was well known in the community for providing friendly and proficient electrician services. He spent many hours working on Lisbon's ATV and snowmobile trails, keeping them in great shape. He took the time to help his Riverside Club members whenever they called upon him. He enjoyed the club picnics, the group rides, along with spending many hours outdoors fishing with his family and friends in his free time. He attended many meetings serving our community on the Recreation Committee and Conservation Commission between 1996 and 2011. The council and residents of Lisbon would like to express their gratitude to his family by dedicating this report to Carol. We certainly miss him and know that he will be affectionately remembered by all who knew him. And so we have a report that's, yes. Yeah, so you want to open it up? Take a peek at it? We are printing more. That's our very first copy. This is a draft. It's not as great a shape, but that's the very nice version. So we have one to give you. There'll be others available at the library if you'd like to pick up more.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
At the library?
Yes, the library. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. We're glad you came in tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your father. Your father's service was awesome. I know he did a lot of work for my mom, so.
Yeah, he spent most of his adult life helping the children of Lisbon Falls in the sports and whatever else. But yeah, he was a big on the recreation committee.
I'm glad we could honor him with this then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is an honor, and we do thank you for that. So.
Thank you very much.
Yep. We appreciate his time.
Okay.
And you're all set?
All right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Just let
Appreciate you
us
coming
know
in.
how many copies you want.
Anything like that?
You know what? If you want, I can get a picture right there. I think you
Right.
can. Let's try this. Yeah, let's try this.
Gotta corral Dave, get him back there, yeah.
Oh, and take this home.
Probably want to do that. All right, so zoom in here a little bit. We want that microphone not to be where it is right there. Thank you. That's better.
Opposed, Debbie?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks again, folks.
All right, so So next item?
Back
Oh,
to
well,
you, Paul.
actually,
Yep.
yes, next item is the Spirit of America tributes.
Perfect.
Would you like me to read the one for the Lisbon Junior Athletic League?
Yep,
And
we
take-
have Lisa Brown to come in and accept on their behalf.
Wonderful. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And all those in favor? Order passed, 7-0. And the proclamation reads as follows. Did we get that on? The 2020 Lisbon Main Spirit of America Foundation tribute honors the Lisbon Junior Athletic League for 50 years of commendable community service, providing for recognition of the Lisbon Junior Athletic League board, coaches, and volunteers. Be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Lisbon as follows. Whereas the Lisbon Junior Athletic League was founded in 1970 to provide baseball and softball and other athletic programs for Lisbon's youth ages 5 to 18. And whereas the Lisbon Junior Athletic League is committed to providing high-quality facilities, safe equipment for the use of their players. And whereas the Lisbon Junior Athletic League strives to provide players with volunteer coaches who seek to teach those players the rules of the game, along with proper baseball and softball fundamentals. And whereas the Lisbon Junior Athletic League volunteers, coaches work with players of all ability levels, and who remember that development of exceptional athletic skills and winning games is secondary to the development of players and providing players with positive examples and positive baseball, softball experience. And whereas the Lisbon Junior Athletic League is committed to the development of sportsmanship, teamwork, honesty, courage, respect for others, and physical fitness for all levels of competition in the Lisbon community. And whereas the Lisbon Junior Athletic League celebrates 50 years of local athletic programming with the 2020 season, and whereas the Lisbon Junior Athletic League Board of Directors, coaches, and volunteers dedicate countless hours throughout the year planning baseball and softball programs every season for 300 to 400 Lisbon youth. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Lisbon that the Lisbon Junior Athletic League Board of Directors, coaches, and volunteers are hereby recognized for their great achievements and honors that they have brought upon this community with the 2020 Lisbon Spirit of America Foundation tribute. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be framed and presented to the Lisbon Junior Athletic League for appropriate display. And you'll find that it is all set right there for you.
It's much better when it's read by Twyla, correct?
Much better.
We just had this conversation in the parking lot.
And we'll just get a nice little picture. Oh, sure.
I want to thank Lisa for coming out and actually accepting on behalf of the LJL tonight. Anybody that sat through a meeting with Tony Austin knows she drew the short straw.
I did. That's
she
okay.
was-
I love you all.
Glad to see
You're
you.
welcome. Thank
Yes,
you all
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Next item, there's been one more.
We do have one more, and that is for the 2020 Maine Spirit of America Foundation tribute as honors Angie Demores for commendable community service. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you.
This recognition of Angie Demores for her volunteerism and community service goes like this. Be it hereby resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Lisbon as follows. Whereas Angie is well known throughout Lisbon for her selfless work with a variety of organizations, including but not limited to Positive Change Lisbon, Lisbon Parks and Recreation Committee, and the School Parent Action Group. Whereas Angie is a fearless and compassionate leader who has no problem taking the lead on projects or serving as chair or president of committees. Just 3 years ago, Angie led a team of volunteers to raise over $50,000 to purchase new playground equipment for the MTM Community Center. This team worked for 2 days installing the playground. Whereas Angie has spent years as a member of the parent-teacher organizations, she has worked with these schools helping to raise funds for students to attend camp and leadership seminars. Whereas Angie's vision and commitment to making Lisbon a better place to live and raise a family has not gone unnoticed. She has volunteered at our Moxie Festival, 5K, and car show. She is a planner on the Moxie Festival committee. Whereas Angie is the current president of Positive Change Lisbon. This is a nonprofit working with businesses, citizens, and the town to improve the image and business environment of Lisbon, Maine. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Lisbon that Angie is hereby recognized for her admirable achievements and honors that she has instilled upon this community with the 2020 Lisbon Spirit of America Foundation tribute. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be framed and presented to Angie for appropriate display. And that is right for you to pick up.
Wonderful. I just wanted to say thank you very much to everyone and to Mark for the for the recommendation. And there's really not a day that goes by that I don't feel very fortunate to live in this town, and it's because of the people who live here. So thank you very much. I'm honored.
Thank you.
I'll follow that up to say the community is better because of the contributions that you make, so thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely, well deserved.
We'll get one more, and the lovely lady in the doorway. How's that? Thank you. You're welcome.
Next file.
Let me look here. We're thinking we would like to move one of our public hearings up.
Okay. Do we have any other good news and recognition from the group before we proceed? Seeing none, which item would you like to take out of order, Twyla?
Actually, this is to set a public hearing for June 16th for the medical marijuana. There's 3 of them. So that comes under the consent agenda pretty much. So if we take the consent agenda up right now, all of those that are here for that would be able to head out. And then we can come back and do our public hearings after. Would you like to do that?
Perfect. If
right.
that works for him, let him know what the date of that public hearing would be, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, so we'll begin with the consent agenda and do it right now. So you'll know that's been done. So consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless a counselor requests an item to be removed for immediate discussion. Any counselor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Seeing none. Order 2020-20-103 to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants totaling $231,925.37. The municipal payroll warrants totaling $135,291.63. The school account payable totaling $104,308.15, and the school payroll warrants totaling $461,755.87. Along with the minutes of May 19, an itinerant vendor license and mobile unit for Pesky, Maine Lobster, a victuals license for Antonio Briglio doing business as Roadside Barbecue at 73 Lisbon Street, the special entertainment permit and liquor license for Frank's Restaurant and Pub, the liquor license extension for the on-premise for Frank and Flux, allowing outdoor sales, and to set the public hearing on June 16th for the marijuana establishments permits for Delightful Heights, 207 Edibles, and Lisbon Cannabis, and to reschedule the municipal budget public hearing to June 23 at 7 p.m., and to approve the MS4 stormwater update plan.
I need a motion.
Yes.
Make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second. Mr. Chair,
Sure.
we're voting to approve something that hasn't had a hearing yet?
No, the ones that you're approving have all had hearings. The ones that have not.
Is that right? Because the hearings were ahead of it, that's why I wondered.
Which ones are you talking about? To set the public hearings?
Antonio Briglio,
Yes, we already did those. Mm-hmm.
we did.
Yeah, at the
That was at the,
previous meeting.
Yeah.
On Zoom.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so we set the public hearings, and at the next meeting, we hold the public hearings and approve the license, so this is at,
you set, Mr. Fellows?
Yeah, yeah.
did I do
Okay,
that right?
I'm just checking.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
and as I spoke to earlier, I'd probably abstain from this vote. Just
Okay.
if there's maybe a potential interest on one of the items.
Oh, you want to abstain?
Yes.
So are you ready to vote?
Yes, we are. There's no other, by all means.
Those in favor? Those opposed? Looks like it's
601, Mr.
701, yeah.
Federer abstaining.
We still have to do roll call voting.
No, we don't. In
Good.
person, we're good tonight, Don.
But I did want you to, if there were no objections, to consider a motion to set a public hearing for June 16th for a mobile unit at 501 Lisbon Street. He was able to get everything in today, but it wasn't in time for the agenda. But this would set him on the 16th.
So that would be part of this consent agenda as well?
It's a new motion.
New motion. I need a new motion. I need the first on that.
I'll make a motion.
I need a second on that motion. And one more time, what that motion is, please, Twyla?
Yeah, to set a public hearing for Gary Karen doing business as Anything Goes, a mobile unit at 501 Lisbon Street. So the public hearing will be June 16th.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
7-0, order passed. Thank you.
Next, Twyla.
All right, so next we go back to public hearings. And this public hearing, we want to mention that once the chair opens any public hearing, that a person present who wishes to speak may enter the room and approach the lectern, one individual at a time, to address the council chair. To use the microphone and state your name for the record. Those listening from the town hall live streams are now invited to send written comments by emailing award, that's award at lisbonma.org, once any public hearing has been opened. Councilor Ward will review his emails at this time. The first public hearing is for the proposed school budget and capital improvement plan.
I will open the public hearing. Come on in. Rick, who else do you have waiting in the wing? I know you had staff if you needed them for questions, correct? Or is that
No, it's just
two of you?
Tracy and I right now.
So everybody's present, so that's good.
Yep.
All right, so anybody in the wing that we know about that actually would want to hear the content of this? Diane? Okay. I checked my email just before this meeting and there was nothing at that time, but as you're doing your presentation, Mr. Green, I will update to see if there's anything that comes in as well.
Okay. All right, I will try to keep this brief. Normally I would do a presentation, but this evening I'm just going to a slideshow and stuff, but just for safety reasons and stuff, I'll go through. And I did send you a copy of the PowerPoint that I normally would, that I'll go over in a second, but I just want to give you an overview, as some of you have had questions. The Lisbon School Department budget, which was adopted by the school committee on June 1st, 2020, has changed since the original proposal was presented to you in March. Copies of the slides from the PowerPoint presentation that I would normally share have been sent to each of you in an effort to reduce any safety issues related to the handling of equipment and documents. Based on previous conversations and through some of your questions, I wanted to specifically focus on the key elements that are associated with the proposed increases and our reasoning for including the additional student support services in a time when we are fully aware of the economic impact that COVID-19 has and will continue to have on the residents of Lisbon and Lisbon Falls. First and foremost, I wanted to share that over the last 10 years, there have been 3 school budgets that had a 0% or a decrease to the local taxes. When looking at the 10-year historical graph, this is the lowest tax increase request in the last 5 years. Although we believe that we have an understanding of the economic impact of COVID-19 on our taxpayers, the issues involving the social and emotional needs of our students and staff is unknown, and myself, administration, staff, and members of the school committee feel strongly that the additional funding for student support services will be needed now more than ever. Over the last 3 months, our staff have, in my opinion, successfully designed and implemented a distance learning plan that has served the needs of a majority of our students and families. The concern is the fact that there are a percentage of students, roughly around 15 to 25%, that had limited to almost no participation throughout this time. Another consideration is the fact that our special education population has only been able to work remotely, and it is many of these students who need the direct face-to-face and hands-on instruction the most. I have learned that trying to predict the future, especially anything related to COVID-19, is nearly impossible. But I do know that the pieces that we have in place have and will make a difference as we prepare for the 2020-21 school year. Through careful analysis and conversation, conversations, the current budget has been decreased by $313,326, or 4.2%, since being first presented to you in March. I also wanted to share that we are looking at utilizing any savings this year to help repair the boiler LCS, which I know you have an action item on tonight, and possibly replace the maintenance truck, which is costing more in repairs than what it's worth. Both are essential to our operations, and we are trying to utilize existing funds to cover these costs. I've also made it clear that the 2020-2021 budget will be immediately frozen in an effort to prepare for any curtailments and additional costs associated with COVID-19, such as transportation, nutrition, PPE, etc. Prior to going over the slides that I've shared with you, I wanted to provide you with some information related to the increases that you have reviewed in the budget summary sheets that you were provided in February. Roughly, the increases and decreases in our budget, one of the largest increases is salaries and benefits. This year alone, our salaries and benefits with the negotiated contracts, it was an increase of $481,483. Nutrition, there was a $200,000 transfer in there to offset the cost of our nutrition. Just based on salaries and benefits alone, that was increased by $31,000. The regular instruction or the student support services are all located in LCS, so you'll notice that there will be a big increase in that area, or there was a big increase in those sheets. Roughly that amount remains at $176,000, and that is right now prioritizing. It would look like we would have two of the coaches or coordinators to help with trauma and keep resiliency and truancy. The biggest increase in the budget is related to special education. One is out of district placement, and the other one is the seed money, which is part of our audit review that they wanted us to transfer or have money raised locally to cover the cost. And that is basically what happens is because we're generating revenue, we lose subsidy. And so you have to, the way the auditors have it set up, or the way that they proposed it, is that we need to have that money or raise that money locally to offset what the cost that we're losing in subsidy through the seed money. It's a complicated formula, but those two combined total $492,400 increase. Main state retirement, which, as many of you know that have been doing this for a while, that was something that was shifted over to the school departments that was put on property taxes years ago. That amount this year was an increase of $23,510, but is a total impact on our budget of $420,556 this year. One transfer that you'll see, as you know, we have hired and added a curriculum director, and we did replace a teacher at LCS. That was all done through transfers and within the budget itself. So they're not, although they're going to be new to us, they're not new to this. They're not new to the money. The money is not new. It's already was in there. It was through the library budget, and there was a position at the Gartley Street School that we didn't fill. The other piece is that the school committee has talked about moving my salary directly back into the superintendent's line, whereas now it's divided into curriculum and in the superintendent line, and then the library professional lines would all be used to offset these positions. The reason why we can't do it right now is because if we change it in our system right now, or if we change it for next year, it actually updates our system and it throws everything off. So we have to keep it as is until the budget's approved, and then we can go in and make those changes. So that you'll see that there's $34,999, or a little bit over that, in the curriculum lines now. That's not us putting money in there. That was actually came from a special education professional services line that we used that we didn't need for next year. So we moved that $34,999 into the curriculum to offset the cost for that position. So it was in the budget. We just moved it from one area to another, so it was a transfer. Just wanted to point that out in case you saw that. I'll talk about when I go through the presentation, I'll talk about other areas of potential costs and savings. Anticipated actual resignations, those will be ongoing. We have hired quite a few people, but I do anticipate even potentially administration and staff that will leave during the school or during the summer to take other positions. Use of the capital reserve, we have a set amount that we've used over the last few years, but that's an option. Restructuring, anytime there's a resignation or an additional retirement, we can restructure. The service center penalty, it is part of this. I don't have an exact amount. I think it's between 90 and 100 something thousand that we lose in subsidy by not being part of a service center. However, when July 1st comes around, the school committee should be able to apply and be accepted into the Western Maine Regional Service Center, which will help us not next year but the year after. So hopefully that'll be something that the school committee will consider. The unassigned amount, depending on, I know we just finished our audit, but the unassigned amount is we use roughly around $118,000 a year. That's a variable. The new one is the governor passed an executive order that allowed school departments to create a regular instruction reserve account. And so what that is if there's a curtailment or whatever during the school year, which I believe there will be, you're able to go into your unassigned and pull money from there, just like the capital reserve, place it into the regular instruction reserve account, and then use that to offset any of the loss in subsidy and stuff. So it's a new option that school departments will be able to use. And so the school committee, you'll see it on the cost center. You'll see that line. It's zeroed right now, but we do have that option to utilize that if needed. Gartley Street School revenue is another variable. The one thing I will caution is that, as I mentioned at the school committee meeting the other night, I do have parents who have said that until there's a vaccine, they will not be sending their students back to school. So I don't know how that's going to impact us, K through 12, special education, all that. So that is a variable. And then special education enrollment. Students moving in and moving out, and quite honestly, having 3 months off, and then the entire summer. Some of our students that we may have had a handle on prior to March 13th may come back and may need even more services than what we can provide. And as some of you probably already know, all it takes is 1 or 2 students to have to be placed out of district, and the costs are significant. We're currently over $200,000 overexpended in those lines already. So it only takes every student, depending on their needs, moving in or within our own district that we can't handle. Those costs are pretty significant. And then unanticipated revenue is anything that we've generated through this. The other piece is the CARES funding, which is federal money that we would be able to utilize. We have used in our budget, we have used $84,000 to offset the budget, and with the intent of purchasing technology and other things that we'll need moving forward. There's a lot of strings attached to that, and I think if you listen to the governor, you'll find that the money that the state has received, they're waiting to get clarification because they question what it can be used for. With that being said, I'd like to quickly go through the slides, if that's all right. Sure. So the school budget, the proposed budget based on the ED 279 figures that we received on January 30th, 2020. The recommendations in this budget include an overall budget increase of 5.8%, or $978,661. The total budget, including adult education, is $17,816,696. And the total local funding amount, including adult education, is $7,703,739, which would result in a 3.96% increase, or $293,523 increase in the local taxes. The budget components for the school budget is what I'll go over tonight. One is how we factor the total budget, contributing factors, the state contribution, total local funding, budget history, capital reserve fund, unassigned fund balance amount, and variables. The total budget is a combination of the state and local contributions, adult education, and revenues. The total amount of the proposed school budget is listed below. So with revenues, we have $564,846, which is an increase of $57% increase from last year, which would equal $204,720. $107,000 of that is for Gartley Street revenue, and the other $84,000 is through the CARES Act. State contribution, we did receive additional money, or been told we will receive additional money from the state. That is $9,536,727, a 5.3% increase, or $480,078 increase. The local contribution is what you are required to pay locally. That is currently $7,681,505, or 3.97%, or $293,863 increase locally. The total budget is, again, $17,816,696, or a 5.8% increase of a total of $978,661. The major contributing factors in this budget include the following items. The proposed budget utilizes an additional $165,000 in Gartley Street revenue and $84,000 in CARES Act funding to offset the increases. I've gone over this, the salaries and benefits, Maine State retirement, nutrition, special education, and student support services money for the guidance and the coordinators. The COVID-19 CARES and regular instruction reserve are not factored into this right now, so we're not sure exactly what the total cost will be. I do know that the DOE is supposed to be doing a large purchase for PPE for schools, but again, there's still a lot of confusion on what the requirements are and what you need to have for the start of the school, or when we do return buses, things like that. There's all kinds of conversations that are ongoing, and there's committees that have been formed that will be giving us guidance. The state subsidy is determined through a combination of funding formulas. The current state contribution, again, is $9,536,727, or an increase of $480,078. The essential programs and services, which I talk about every year, this includes teachers, guidance, librarians, health, ed techs, library techs, and clerical. The formula is set up for the number of students you have. They will calculate the percentage or the number of staff you should have in each of those positions. So you'll see, for instance, in health we have 3 full-time nurses, and the state will say that we should have, by their formula, 1.5, 1.6. And so anything above that you have to raise locally. So the amount that we're actually above EPS this year is $2,649,534. The majority of that is a result of athletics, co-curricular, nutrition, teacher retirement, service center penalty, and substitute pay, which are all lower than what we actually have to budget. The total local funding is the amount of funding required to be raised locally, as I already said. That amount is $7,681,505. And the next sheet is the actual graph that shows you the budget historically. And on the bottom, you'll see where it says you have the actual year, the total budget, and the state contribution and total local funding, and the increases and decreases that occur as a result of those. The capital reserve was established in 2012. This fund is intended for the maintenance of plant and minor remodeling. As of today, the balance was $71,484, which is prior to, or I believe that's after your action tonight. And this year, the school has put in $43,209 for next year's. That's actually should be 2020-2021 budget. Another $43,209 from the capital reserve fund to build this budget, and that is used for the performance contracts and services that we receive for all the phase 1 and phase 2 of those the performance contracts that we have through Siemens. Each year, the school department utilizes unassigned funds from the end in school budget and unanticipated revenue to build the next budget. The unassigned amount used to build the next year's budget is the same as it has been, $118,211. Some variables, as I've already mentioned, that could be cost or savings to the budget. Again, anticipated actual resignations, restructuring, capital reserve, special education, Gartley Street revenue, unanticipated revenue, regular instruction reserve, and one thing I don't have listed on there is the CARES fund, or the CARES Act funding. To summarize, the budget again is an increase of 5.8% or $978,661 from last year, which would result in an increase of $293,523 on the local taxes. And that is,
If anybody's looking at the agenda, the other item on here is the capital improvement plan. Mr. Green and the school committee chair actually asked me about that in the hallway. I covered that, and the fact is we have already addressed that through the workshops. If there are any questions, you can ask them, but I am under the impression that there was nothing that was warranted to revisit on the capital improvement plan of the portion. Seeing no questions or concerns in the room, we're going to float that. School committee chair, do you have anything that you would add to this outside of what Rick's already presented?
Not really. I don't know if there's any questions.
Why don't you recap the meeting the other night, what you guys took for action?
At the meeting the other night, the previous meeting before that, we had asked that our A team, which is our administration team, give us a priority list of, there was 4 positions that we had in the budget. And through those conversations, they provided that to us, and we unanimously voted to remove an additional teaching position because of the way the numbers were working in the class sizes. So that is why it wasn't the $400 and somewhat thousand. We got it down by removing that, and then there was another out of district placement that we identified that we weren't going to need. So those 2 things were removed from there, and that's why there's still 3 remaining, but it got down to 293 and change.
Correct. And that was $154,000 in change that they actually cut at the last workshop that was actually planned for this item. So that brings us to here tonight. The public workshop is open. I have 2 questions. The first is from Marie Hale. Out of district, how many are attending Gartlett Street, and how many are we doing out of districts on, I guess is the question.
I believe they're around, I'd rather get you actuals
Okay.
instead of trying to guess.
Can you,
but
for the listening public, knowing that Marie's here and then we can share this information with her tomorrow, give me an estimate of what you think?
Yeah, if you can forward me the email or the questions, I
Yep.
will have my
Specifics.
director give you the specifics.
Yep. Okay.
Because it could be, I don't want to guess, but I would have to guess that it's around 30-something kids that we have at Gartley Street right now.
And how many out of district, Rick?
I would say probably 4 or 5.
From one of the last reports, that was the number I was thinking in my head, too.
All right. So for Mrs. Hale, that's actually listening public. The fact is we will forward that question directly to you folks and get the specifics of the answer, but at least we have an estimate for the question asked tonight.
I have a quick follow-up, too. Just put some context around that, if you would, Mr. Green. Before we had the Gartley school, we were sending quite a few kids out of, and that was a significant cost. Just, and I'm not holding you to the exact number, but prior to us having 30 here that we saved money on, we were sending those out at a much higher cost, correct?
Yeah, I actually remember the numbers. It was, I think the first year we spent $800,000 on the Gartley Street with all the employees and all the staff, and it was a savings of about $200,000 to $300,000. That was prior to generating any of the revenue. So it was in the, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some context around that.
Not that all the students, just to be clear, not that all the students, remember, some of the kids at our Gartley are alternative ed, so they would still be here, but some of the day treatment students would have to be out of district place, so the district is saving hundreds of thousands of dollars by having that program. But it doesn't serve the needs of all of our students, unfortunately.
Thank you.
And I had one other, not a question, it's a comment, and I guess it's directed towards us. It's from Sarah Craig. that she really wishes that counselors would not be on their phones during the school presentation. What I would offer on that is that many of us are sitting in the room here tonight, Mrs. Craig, that actually are trying to multitask to be able to get as much information as part of this dialogue. I assure you there's nobody in this room that's actually not interested in the content of what's actually being presented to us.
Sometimes it's just a matter of us
Perception.
using our calculators to try to pull numbers together quickly, but I appreciate the comment because definitely I'd want to know if I was sitting on the other side that folks were engaged and actually paying attention. So thank you for the question. Comment.
That said, that is the grand sum to date at this point for what I have for public. I would have any questions from the council. To get to this point, we had the original presentation. The date escapes me. It was before, just 2 weeks before
March
everything.
10th.
March 10th.
It was March 10th.
And then the 17th, actually, proverbial hit the fan kind of approach the following week, and we've been a bum rush to get to here. At that point in time, to recap what Mr. Green has presented to us is the fact that at that point it was just under 9 at this point, and the reductions today we're down to 3.98%. The school committee has actually reduced the budget that we have before us. I'm cutting to the chase on just the local allocation because that's usually the grand sum of what gets people's most bristled. $372,466.
273. 200.
Did I do my math wrong?
Yeah.
270. Thank you. So that
Actually, I think 293 and change.
so the drop actually just recaps what's here.
23,523.
From 9, right?
After that original presentation, I heard from the majority, if not all the counselors here, that, and as we knew and you guys actually presented at that point, 9% wasn't going to be the ending place, and nobody was comfortable with that number. That said, I'm still not sure what the will of the council is for this number and everybody's temperament associated with 3.9. What I would say is I sat through last week's workshop meeting, and the fact that I did hear the list of priorities, and they made the conscious choice to be able to get to this place associated with that. So that said, if anybody wants to take the floor from there, please go ahead.
I have something to say, but Mr. Chair, but I don't have to be first.
I'm hearing no other movement in the room. You can go, sir, unless you want to go second.
When are we voting on the school budget? Is it the 20?
16.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
I'm gonna need Diane for a second too. The fact is, there's a key point on this, and I want to just make sure it's the fact check. It's my understanding that that date and that item is real specific, because we have had the benefit of 4 years where, coming out of that meeting, we've had a budget that has been supported both by the council and the school committee to be able to actively not have to have multiple votes on that for convincing our voting public. In that regard, that is going to be key this coming year, with the fact is everything COVID related. I believe we have one shot at this. You don't want to get it right, because they've already pushed back what normally would be a vote in June to now July, that we don't have time to play games with that. Likewise, if you guys remember, I said 4 years. The 5th year is the fact that that voted action on that meeting of the 16th, whether it is actually what is supported by the school committee or is actually the result of what comes out of that room, is what sets it in motion for the tax base. Anything that they can do for a vote that happens after that fact would actually be secondary and is usually supplemental. The tax bills are already set in motion, is the key soundbite that I want. Do I have that 100% correct?
That is right.
That's a key sticking point.
So what you're saying basically is, regardless what you vote on, it's actually what comes out of the public hearing, the last public hearing, that actually sets the tax rate for what our tax rates are. And even if it went through 6 other votes that were denied and the budget was dropped, it still wouldn't change the tax rate at that point, because that's already been established.
Correct. And that's sitting on this side of the table, that's a pretty heavy burden associated with that, because we're 5 years after that point, and the fact is there's a considerable amount of goodwill that's actually been built up. I can remember very specifically the following discussion on budget, conversation with you and the chair, Mr. Bickford, at the time, is the fact is we got nothing if we don't have trust between the two business partners. And hashing out the specifics of SROs and everything that went before this board at that point has gotten us to this point. So that said, if they're saying 3.9, everybody in the room has their own measure of if that's acceptable or not. But when we vote on the 16th, we need to know what that ultimately is going to be, because they need to, if there's action that needs to happen, they need to be a part of that discussion.
So if we vote on the 16th,
anything lower than what you're seeing, that is what would ultimately go before the voters. At that point, that actually sets the tax rate, whether it passes or not.
okay.
So the communications that we have now shouldn't be a surprise on the 16th.
Right.
If we have reservations, that's why we're in the room right now.
They are here tonight.
So that
Absolutely.
we can have those discussions, so that when we do get to the 16th, we are all on the same page as far as where we land. And that may not be a reality. I'm not trying to put a bug in anybody's ear. Everybody's comfortable with what they're comfortable with, and they may see something day of that says, we didn't touch on this, and I really want to talk about it. And I just think that, Twyla, maybe you can help me with this, and I hate to put you on the spot. When we had the issue 4 years back, what was the cost of each additional special vote that we had in the school budget?
It's probably around 1,500 to 2,000, somewhere
Yeah.
in
So, and we had 4 or 5. I can't remember. Was it 4?
Bunch.
at least 4 in the first one, so.
Okay. I'm just doing.
Well, the reason, Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
the reason that I've asked for those dates is because I was trying to get to the point that, tonight's we discuss it.
Yeah.
Because next time,
Yeah.
if we discuss it then, we're scrambling to put numbers together at the meeting, and they're scrambling. And I'm kind of following your lead. When we initially started the budget work with the municipal side, I was looking at, tolerant of increases based on COVID was going to go away. And to your credit, Mr. Chair, you pretty much said flat or less than flat, because we're not going to make it through the year if we don't do that for the municipal budget.
Right.
And I'm really having a tough time with 4% or 3.97% with the school budget. And I'm not because I'm anti-school or anything else. It's just that this is COVID time. We need to be as flat as we can. The school department justifiably, and the school committee justifiably, is looking after the students and the school people. But as counselors, we have a wider responsibility to look at the entire town for municipal responsibility and school responsibility. I don't think they're wrong in advocating. I just think we don't do ourselves justice if we really don't say what we mean that we should come through with. To that end, I just have a couple of questions, and one of them is, at the Zoom meeting that you had last week on the 26th, you referenced that. I went to look back at it and I couldn't find it, but it was a workshop that ultimately ended up a regular meeting with votes in it, I guess. But and the first thing that was eliminated was an ed tech classroom teacher position, which, you're right, was on the bottom. I thought I heard an 89K or 87K or something like that.
84,000.
Okay.
It's not really positions, it's money for positions.
Right.
'Cause sometimes, depending on who you hire, you can get more or less.
So the remaining 3 priorities on there, are they all new positions that are worked into this budget? So they're new positions?
The 174,000 that I mentioned is roughly the money to cover 2 positions, actually.
Mm-hmm.
There's a position that's going to be the CARES money, the 84,000 that's put into CARES will offset a guidance counselor at LCS.
Okay. So if the council were to ask you to come in with a flat budget, what would you do?
I can't answer that, right? I mean, I would have to, it doesn't come from pens and pencils or paper, it comes from people.
I understand that.
So, I mean, I can't speak for the committee at this point. I know that where their position is. The positions, the support positions that are added were added as a result of the school committee.
And I don't mean to be confrontational. I did listen to the Zoom meeting. I wanted to go back and look at what was actually said, but I thought I heard Dr. Green, you say that even if all of these positions were eliminated, we could still come in with a flat budget. Or if they made us come in with a flat budget, we would.
It'd be pretty close.
Just because the numbers work that way.
There were numbers. So,
right, it's
again,
not people. There's no people attached to those positions right now, so it doesn't make it. My point was that when you don't have people attached to positions, it doesn't hurt.
Right.
To have those conversations and laying people off.
Right.
The issue is that when you go back to your comment about COVID-19, we have kids that have been at home for 3 months, and it'll be closer to 6, and the social emotional needs of those kids are going to be at an all-time. We have no idea what we're going to get for kids when they come back.
I understand that.
And staff as well.
And we've also had parents that have been home for 3 months without a job too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Some, yeah.
It's got to balance it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I'm just saying anything other than flat for me is a problem. I'm willing to go with what the council wants to do, but and I don't like being the bad guy, but that's the way I feel.
Just echo what Don's saying is the fact that that's the message that I delivered it in turn, and I encourage you guys to reach out to both parties here as soon as we could to be able to have them get to this point in the dialogue, because it does us no good if it's actually the night of the 16th, then we actually come at it with a cut. That has been trying to be proactive through this process to allow them to be able to go through that process. So we've heard from one camp. Anybody else? Do you have any other questions? Or do you want to go back around, Don?
No, I'm set.
You're all set. Anybody else?
I'm going to tag along with what Don said. I mean, I'm one of those parents who have been out of work and have kiddos at home. I understand exactly what you're saying. I do have one of those kiddos that is struggling. But playing devil's advocate here, we do have people in town who don't have jobs or businesses that are permanently closing and will never reopen. So we have to kind of look at what that increase is going to look like. And I'm going to say the same thing, flat or, a decrease.
So your position 02 is what you're saying. All right. Anybody else, please?
I can actually add and again, as most people know, usually when it comes to school board and council, I've actually always said we each play our own role. I mean, and we just hope that the school board actually is as concerned as council, and I'm sure they are. I mean, so I think that's why they're elected officials to come up with a budget, and I will support what they come up with. And my biggest concern is when, to echo on everybody else, is we actually, we were started through a budget season, and all this got turned upside down, and really our hopes and concerns actually kind of came out to the point of being, what do we do? And no one has a crystal ball, and no one can see in the future. And one of the reasons we actually, as a council, directed by the chair, had Diane actually reduce our budget is the idea of we were trying to figure out what the plan B was. So if we actually lose, a quarter of our revenue, our operations don't maintain, right? I mean, actually, we got to do some mid-year changing and readdressing. My concern is not that the idea the school board hasn't put together a good budget, or that I'd be against the idea of moving forward to the vote, is if there is a major curtailment in what the state actually puts out or what the town has to be able to offer. I mean, as the school board or the administration look to see what plan B would be if your budgets would drop significantly, or.
Well, I'm not. I guess out of all the regional superintendents, I'm one of the ones that believes strongly there will be a curtailment, and that's why I would freeze the budget from the get-go. So if there were positions that we didn't fill, let's say, for instance, hypothetically, athletics in the fall don't occur, this year we had money, like some of the money from those coaching stipends and stuff like that, we're hoping to use to, at the end of the year, to pay for a truck. So we would take and pay for nutrition costs, things like that. So yes, I would always do that. And what happens is I would create a purchase order, and anytime that if there's $1 or $1,000 or whatever left over in a line because we saved money, then those all gets put into account and gets set aside for a curtailment. So yes, I plan on a curtailment at some point, because if you wait and it hits you in December, then you have to reduce twice as many people to get there, especially if it's a big number. So
And that was really our direction, and I believe from the chair, was the idea of trying to reduce that probable, because I don't think it's a guess. I think even on the municipal level, there's going to be a lack of revenue. And I'm not saying it's going to be significant, but we actually know that when it comes to, between taxes and state revenue sharing, we actually may see a really significant drop. And it's easier just to actually make the cuts now than it is halfway through, or starting off a budget year, to actually take people that you hired and actually have to let them go, which is very challenging. And I think as a council or a school board, we're all trying to maintain a level of what we have to make sure it's actually, the services stay the same. But as a municipality, we can't guarantee that through the year. I mean, at this point in time, and I guess my biggest concern would be the idea. I just hope that you're coming through with a budget that's actually as streamlined as possible. So if there's $1 million worth of curtailment through what you get from the state, that you're actually able to, regroup and actually still try to provide the services without actually overextending. That's all. I mean, that's my biggest concern. It's, as a local people, we can actually offer assistance. We can do a lot of things locally to help. The only thing we can't really do is actually try to generate some of that big revenue if it's a loss. You know what I mean? And that was my biggest concern, and that's why we had directed Diane through the chair to try to bring our expenses as low as possible, just so we could actually try to mitigate the idea of going through the budget, through not just the budget season, going through the year and actually having to backpedal and actually try to figure out where we're going to find that extra money. So again, I'm just a concerned person, that's all. And I support what the school board comes up with. That's why they're elected officials to do that. I just hope that at the end of the day, it's actually everybody's putting their best foot forward. So if we do got to backpedal a little bit, it's going to be as easy as we can.
Well, one thing I didn't mention at the beginning is that I've known a lot of you for a lot of years, and this is really, I mean, I understand finances, I understand money and taxes and stuff like that, and we've always worked hard to keep those numbers as low as possible. But I can't emphasize enough, we wouldn't be in front of you asking for an increase if we didn't believe we were going to need this stuff. I mean, I don't know how to compare it, whether it's if you had a road that was washed out and you were deciding, are we going to fix it or just going to drive around it for a year? Because eventually it's going to cost you more and more. We have kids that have a gap in their education. Right now, the remote learning, it's all about the haves and the have-nots. The kids who have the families at home who are active and involved have helped those kids through the last 3 months. It's been difficult, but they've helped them. We have 15 to 25% of our kids who I can't guarantee have made any progress. We don't know what they've had for home life. We don't know what kind of trauma. There's stuff, I'll be honest, I think I mentioned it already in my board reports. We've had to call DHS. We've had to file reports on DHS for stuff we've seen through virtual meetings. These kids are, I understand the bottom line just as well as anyone, and we would not be in front of you asking for these positions. Trust, I would not be in front of you asking for these at this point if we didn't think that we need some type of supports for our kids coming back, because if we don't try to fix this now, and it's not just kids, it's staff. We have staff who are petrified of coming back. We have staff who are petrified of doing whatever, and we have a problem. 100%. So yes, the bottom line would be great. I can't get to that bottom line. I can't get to that number. This number is as good as we've had in 5 years, and it's one of the best that we've had in over the last 10. I think it's the second highest or second lowest increase in the last 10 years, next to the zeros and the ones that went below. So I mean, I get it, and I'm just trying to say we are not here. I wouldn't be standing in front of you asking for those additional, for that money if we didn't think we needed it. It's not a wish. It's a need.
Chair.
All it's going to take is one student. You're talking 280,000. I'll give you a hypothetical. That's maybe 3 kids get placed out of district if I don't have the supports in place, and it's a wash.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So to continue on just that, a couple of questions. I'll start with the questions regarding reducing staff, because that's the one I was just making some notes here. So reduce student population. I know there was a talk of that a little bit earlier on, and I only say that because it's an unknown. We don't know how many may or may not come back, and they may not come back because of their concern for exposure, and they're not quite ready to take that risk. And then there'll be other folks who, for whatever reason, maybe send their child back after, like you said, 3, maybe 6 months, 5 months anyway, of really no classroom time, no work, and maybe even worse, some of the traumas from home trying to deal with this. So when that student population comes back, and it's a wild card and we don't know, just to that point, if those students get to a point where it's so bad off and we have to place them out of district because we don't have the support mechanisms, then really that number that we're trying to drive down is a wash, to Mr. Green's point. So really, what are we doing there? Now, the other side of that is, could we defer the positions until we have a better understanding of student population, or are we playing a game of Russian roulette there that it could be worse?
Well, the student population, here's another thing that I haven't mentioned that is something that's being discussed regionally, and it could impact Lisbon, is the fact that towns that have private schools in them, those private schools are not getting the CARES funding, and they haven't had any revenue for months. A lot of them are closing. So we have at least 2 in town. And I don't want to speak out of line because I don't know what their finances are, but I know regionally those types of schools, even big academies that are in towns, have lost so much revenue that they normally get from these kids not being in school, that if in fact any of those close, then our numbers are going to go up. So it is a Russian roulette, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, in regard to numbers. I can't predict how many parents will send their students. I can tell you that the majority of the parents I've talked to have had enough of homeschooling themselves and are ready for their kids to come back for some structure.
Just on the new math.
Yeah.
That seems to be the one we hear the most about, Mr. Green.
Carrying the one is what my wife does with my daughter, but that's...
The other thing you have to think of, too, is even though Superintendent Green may be getting these phone calls, 4 or 5 families doesn't mean they're all from the same grade. So a lot of people like to jump to, well, you won't need the same amount of classroom teachers. Well, that's not necessarily true. They didn't have quadruplets, and they're all in the same grade, and pulling out from that, it's one from here, one from there, so it really doesn't change that entire picture. But we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what it looks like. As Superintendent Green puts in his daily communications to staff, is, he's been asked, as well as other superintendents in the state, to build an airplane while it's flying. And it's still not finished in construction, but yet it's still up in the air. And, we don't know what that looks like. It is an unknown. We don't know where the destination is. All the planning in the world gets us closer to land, but right now, building that airplane is quite a task. And I think the years that I've been on the school committee, I know the difference between a need and a want.
And I want to add, prior to this, when the budget before COVID-19, we had a good problem, and that was the fact that our enrollment numbers were increasing, which if you look around a lot of systems around us, I just heard a community member out in the hallway mention that or a former community member that wanted to move back. It's nearly impossible to get a house in this town. People are buying and flipping, and the real estate market was booming. I don't know what it is right now, but we have a good problem because we have our enrollment numbers. Our numbers are getting to be over 100 per grade level, and so that's why we added the position that was taken out last week. We added that because of our numbers. We have class sizes of 26, 27 kids, which is much higher than what it needs to be.
Are you all set, Mr.? Thank you. Councillor Lunt or Councillor Ganong, anything that hasn't already been discussed? no is a valid answer, but where I'm landing on this one is the fact that whatever we do, we need to be clear on where you're going to be voting on the 16th, because that is it. And if there's anything that's going to be needed to be changed, we need to give them time to be able to do so, because I think it's an injustice to our business partners. So anything from either of you guys?
I guess my position would be the same as Councilor Fellows in regards, like, I'm looking for a flat budget in this regard.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I see the need they're talking about, and I'm definitely troubled by that too. I wish we could find some way to not create new positions when there's a good chance we're going to have to lay people off, and 6 months down the road is really troubling me also. So, yeah, I'd be a lot happier if it was closer to a flat budget, even if it was not exactly flat.
Do you have a magic number? Is anywhere in between?
I don't.
Okay. So your position is landing with the 5 or 3, I mean? Or are you looking for something, Mark?
I don't have numbers off the top
Okay.
of my head.
I saw you looking for something on the screen. I didn't know if you were...
I'm just trying to think.
Okay.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are hurting, and it's really hard to justify any kind of tax increase in this situation.
To try to summarize what I'm hearing in the room, just for general consumption, is we have 2 challenges. One is, regardless of where we actually land on this on the 16th, we need to educate a voting public. What I'm hearing in this is doing the counts that have actually been expressed tonight, that I have a majority of the council that's landing at a number lower than the 3.9. So take that information to digest, see what you guys can do with. I really don't want to be in a position where we are making that same decision on the 16th, because it should be coming from you as the school committee. And if we have better information there, that at least it would be presentable for what we would actually be acting on the 16th. Is that fair? I mean, that this sucks, and I think everybody in the room actually is going to straight up support that decision, because there's a lot of good work that's actually been put into where we're at. Jumping out of the school side for a second, the fact that the thing that was pretty deflating for us on the council side is we got $500,000. That $500,000 actually translated to about a 2.5% decrease in the budget that was eaten up with what we expect to lose in revenues next year. And the fact is to make us position 0. So we lost 2.5% just in what the revenue drop. That's been the perspective that we're coming at it from our group, is the fact is we're pretty well shell-shocked trying to keep up with that stream, knowing fully well that we had heard to that point a very loud message coming from the public that taxes are as they are, and the fact that it's unfortunate and nobody wants to be in this position.
Just my preliminary figures on the revenue with the decrease that we did on the budget side, and then the increase on the county tax, which we have no control over, and my decrease on my revenues, we still have a budget shortfall now of almost 96,000. So that it's going to result in a tax increase unless something else changes between now and.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't think the excise tax is going to be as bad, but it's the revenue sharing is going to. That's where my biggest reduction is, and I can't make that up.
Some of the excise tax, and the fact is you and I have talked about it, and the fact is that the simple math is going to say that you're going to be collecting stuff next year that it should have been in this year, and you're going to be catching up as people come down the line. That's a whole separate issue, but it's one example of the fact is the revenue stream that we're talking about. Do you have questions of us, Rick or Tracy? The fact is, at least there's a presentation there trying to at least give you something to be able to see if there's anything in that regard. But I don't want to put you in a position where you actually don't have time to react to it. So I'm glad that we at least have 2 weeks to be able to see what's there, and you've at least got the directive. I know what I would equate to it is having sat through your Zoom meeting, and I heard the discussion about the class sizes. I think your point that you brought up, Tracy, was very valid in that regard, is the fact that a class size of 21, when you're looking at decreased enrollment, isn't going to actually be spread out to any one grade, so it's still going to be there as a reality. The fact is, think that those 4 families have all got somebody in the K through 5 that you could actually cut one position there and fix this is not a reality. It's going to be spread out amongst everybody making their individual choices. The other observation from that meeting the other night was the fact that, and I said it in closing in that regard, is that I feel better having seen $155,000 on a choice that was actually made to get to that point, because the fact is, if not, would be having a much larger discussion. And I was pointing out to the audience there is the fact is I would have started right at 3.9. I would have already given you a figure. What I'm stopping short of tonight is the fact that you have your priorities in that regard, and that I don't believe we want to get into a position where we're actually telling them where to pick the groceries to be able to do what they know they need to do. It's their task. I think that that was the misstep that put 3 of us sitting in this council at that time. So,
Mr. Chair, may I?
Please.
Is it unreasonable to think that since we're not going to be meeting much between now and then, and with a lot of situations where they are at, make it very difficult to actually network in a sense? I mean, is it unreasonable for you to actually work with the school board chair to actually have some dialogue in next week or so and share it with the council? And maybe actually somewhere along the line get, as you know, speaking with it individually to get a feeling where we would be with some dialogue, so we can actually share back with them. So, I mean, the last thing I want is actually to have a meeting with not knowing where we're going to be before the next meeting. I mean, and how do we get there? I think that we actually have to set some type of tool or a mechanism in place so the council can be aware and the school board can be aware, and the administration of where we're at. So, I mean, is it unreasonable to think that that yourself and Tracy would actually have some dialogue along the line and share it with the rest of the group and actually come up with some consensus of where we can be, if there is any change, or if there is not, or I just don't want to get to the 16th and not actually have an impasse. I'd rather actually be well prepared prior to that and actually all have some type of final solution, whether it be what it is right now or some type of modified or sharing information to make other people more comfortable with their vote. I just want to, when we get to the 16th, I want to be ready to actually make sure that we're moving.
What I would ask to that point, Councilor Rochelle, would be is what I would ask each of you before the week's out. Actually, if you could get to me in the next 2 days. I know I was going through the room and I was asked each one of you to actually tell me where you're going to live. I clearly heard the fact that it's closer to 0. If there's a figure that's higher than that, I need the percentage so I can communicate that to the chair, because I need to know, because my point that I delivered to the school committee the other night is the fact is I don't know what everybody's comfort level is to be able to sell this. The fact is I've heard varying opinions associated with that, but clearly it is not going to be a 7-0 vote on the 16th. I need to know what we can have for a majority to be able to give them something to work with. Is that fair, Tracy?
So you're really asking for the council to give you feedback, so you
give me feedback. One of the things that I've always said is the fact is I am one of 7. The fact is I need to know what the other 6 are actually sitting in those seats actually are thinking to be able. That's our strength. It's not one person driving the bus. It is a group decision. Similarly, the fact is I heard that clearly from the school committee the other night. The fact is it was a unanimous vote to be able to make a decision on one of their priorities being cut off the list.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Don?
This is not easy. In case somebody
for anybody in the room.
In case somebody thinks it is. And I know when I watched the Zoom meeting the other night, one of the participants said not to cut that last position because if we cut one, the council will just want us to cut some more, and that's not exactly where I'm coming at all. It wouldn't have mattered at all, except that I think that we owe it to everybody to be really tight on this budget.
Yep. I need to be able to sell straight face where we could actually help convincing a voting public for a referendum on that. I don't believe we should be setting a figure that's lower than what the school committee's there. I think it should be both groups agreeing in the approach. And if I can land on that, that's what's hopefully going to play out on the 16th.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So my question, and I don't expect you to answer it at this moment, but I just want to ask and kind of put the idea out there, float it. So the needs for these positions. Is there any scenario that you can think of where you're going to go back to the drawing board and say, can we get by with one of, I mean, obviously you're going to go back to the drawing board. But I mean, when you think about that and you think it through at the initial pass, is there anything that you could say, well, we had to? And the other reason I ask that question is because if some of us are living hard at flat or zero, what that might look like in the event that you were to say, well, we can get by with this, and what that might look like for an increase.
For the 2 trauma support positions for students and staff, I would say no. I think it's an unrealistic expectation to expect somebody to handle 1,200 students and employees of staff, whatever caseload that would be. It was a large undertaking to have 2 to divide that number. And granted, not all of them would necessarily need that type of service, but there's a large population, and with just the stories that I hear from teachers, the amount of reaching out from students regarding family issues, I think it would be setting that person up for failure.
Quick question, too, about trauma coaches. Maybe you can just help educate us a little bit. Mm-hmm. Ideally, initially, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the trauma coaches are going to help students integrate and acclimate, and not only students but staff, back into an environment that's changed drastically, and then try to help them not only sort that transition out, but any sort of residual effects from coming back from being in an environment that maybe wasn't the best prior to that. After we settle down, fingers crossed, what would that role look like? I just want to understand, how would it play?
A lot of it has to do with the truancy as well, because that's half the reason the kids aren't coming to school, because, be honest, they're at home by themselves. And so the truancy, the coordinators have a big part with truancy as well. So they would help us be a connection to families that are having a hard time, because quite honestly, kids can set their own minds if they're going to go to school or not. And some parents reach out for us for help. And so we end up sending SRO officer and stuff. That's not the best approach necessarily. So I have a job, again, this is a position that other districts are putting into place. These people are usually social workers, guidance counselors, or some type of social services people. And so they have that background, and they're able to help parents with resources, help students with resources, and staff. The biggest word right now is that the trauma is a big thing with staff as well, because they're dealing with these kids and they know what they're dealing with at home, and it mentally and emotionally is draining on them as well, because they know that these kids aren't, the only place that's safe is the school. And to have these kids, like I said, these staff are struggling because they haven't seen certain kids for three months, and they've done everything. They've called, trust me, we've done everything we can, and it's just to no avail.
So to that point, I want to there's a line that I want to draw together here, and that's why I want to understand the trauma piece, the trauma coach piece of the thing, because if the primary piece is truancy, I say primary, forgive me if that's not the, if truancy is the biggest issue, then right now that falls on the administration, principals, vice principals, to run those kids down, I'm assuming, in theory, right? If they're not showing up at school.
Principal. Yeah, the assistant principals and the SRO officer.
So that is taking away from time that they could be in the, the assistant principal could be doing other things inside of the school instead of being doing this administrative piece to actually make outreach calls and then coordinate folks to go and check that out. So I'm just saying that because it takes away from the time and the focus that could be on the larger student
those that bother to
population.
show up.
Yeah, and then that could also solve some of the issues if we're having some students who maybe having some behavioral issues and being able to use the administration to kind of sort that out, because I know that there's some challenges there as well.
Yeah, they do. They actually coach the staff as well on how to deal with kids, whether it's behaviors, social, emotional triggers is the buzzword. Identify what kind of triggers that kids have that sets them off, and then they help coach. We have a lot of new staff, so they don't necessarily teach classroom management as much as they should, and they don't also other things, trauma, other social, emotional, just classes that they don't have in college.
And the only reason I asked to kind of go into this depth and detail is that if we're going to make decisions, I want to make sure that we're making informed decisions and really get our hands in the mud and understand why the school committees come before us with these asks, because I don't think we want to make a decision just based solely off of, it's easy to look at a the bottom line and say, okay, well, we have to do this because of this. I agree. I'm there with everybody else to say coming in flat is where we need to be, because revenue loss means that we're actually, and even when we make cuts, we still could be landing in a spot where we're still having a shortfall. So thank you for clearing that up.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I just would make a point in response to Norm a little bit. We shouldn't get into the details of the school department any more than we have to. I realize
That is clearly the tone that I'm actually trying to say
it's
here.
a dollar figure for us, and in the fact that we insulate ourselves is the way it was intended to be, because we're supposed to say, okay, use the dollars that you have, however we give it to you or however we allow it, and deal with it. We're not supposed to get into the emotional weeds. That's difficult, but anyway, that's kind of how I feel about it.
No, and I think that's fair, Don, very fair. My ask was about the scenario, and so I did drill down a little bit on that. But I think my ask was a scenario since
an option, exploring an option.
Since the chair was asking, hey, is there a number that you guys could live at other than the 3 and some change, or are we all flat? So I wanted to hear from them if there was a scenario that might work. And we clearly heard that maybe that doesn't sound like it could work, because it wouldn't be fair to any change that they made wouldn't be fair to the one person they would put into place. It wouldn't serve a purpose. So I guess that's what I wanted to understand a little bit better. That's all.
Two observations that I'm actually hearing in this, and if I refuse to actually go home on a downer and actually have that be what actually I take to bed with me at night. I'm hearing 491 is actually, if you turn no screw in this, just in labor alone, the local allocation is $200,000 below that figure already in that 3.9. And the other part that I would actually offer is looking at our peers and surrounding communities, some of their publicized results that they've actually used for little or no budgetary impact has been gimmick budgeting based on using their surpluses. Rick's presentation tonight actually has not increased any of that to be able to put us in a worse position for next year. Those are the two things that I would leave you guys with, is the fact that he has presented this budget the same as he normally would, in the fact that it is not gimmick budgeting at this point. Thank you for that. Anything else? Okay, so I gave you each a homework assignment. If you know me enough to know that if I don't have it within 24 hours, I'm a nervous guy and I will reach out to you. So please give that to me, because the fact that we owe it to them. Well, I have.
If I can have some direction by Monday, we have a school committee meeting.
Yeah, my intent, knowing that you have that meeting, Tracy, is to give you something to go for that meeting by the end of this week from us. So by all means, if you don't mind, I will close the public hearing on this, and I would like to take 2020-104 out of order while I have the two of them here. Can we do that, Twyla?
Yes.
The capital reserve.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yep, 2020-104, school capital reserve request boiler expense.
This figure is significantly less than what we were originally looking at, because Rick has been working towards what he can take out of this year's budget to be able to cover the costs associated with that. So the amount of this allocation Twyla? Just a list, it's in the detail, but I'm not
It's
gonna
the
find it.
$38,188 to cover the costs associated with the purchase of a replacement boiler at the Lisbon Community School.
I need a motion for that.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second. I have a first and a second. Do we have any questions of the two sitting in the room?
I do feel it's important to point out, since I want to shine a light on what Mr. Green's done to drop that cost. I think I was sitting in on that meeting when it was brought up that it was $80K roughly was the expense for that.
Yep.
So now we're here asking only for 38 of that. So thank you for your work. And I know that it was an unexpected expense. So much appreciated. And I think it's important that the public understands that as well.
Also, just for the public's reference, the boiler that has left us, they are keeping 4 parts for the other ones that are there because, as we all know, low bid is always wonderful, and it didn't last. What was the one? LES was 50-something years old. Yeah. This lasted way less than that. So with the school being introduced in 2004. So they're going to keep those parts in case anything happens to the other ones. They say they look okay for right now, but the replacement will be there for parts.
Okay.
Awesome.
Any other questions? All in favor?
7-0, order passed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Refresh my memory. We're going back up to 4B.
We are going back to the public hearing. B, amend Chapter 70 zoning, adopt new ordinance for accessory dwelling units, new definition, and amend the land use table.
Anybody presenting on behalf of that? No. Anybody wanting to speak on behalf of that?
Do you have any emails?
We've already been through the hearing and everything else with it, so.
No, I've had no new other than the 2 I've already delivered, so I will close that public hearing and we'll move on, Twyla.
Okay. The next public hearing is to amend Chapter 46, Street Sidewalks and Other Public Places, Article 3, Street Acceptance Standards, Section 4667, the documents required prior to council acceptance.
I'll open the public hearing. I'm still seeing nothing, so we're closing that public hearing and we're moving on.
So I'd like to apologize to Councilor Fellows. I think I understand now what you were trying to point out a few minutes ago. But both the town manager and I think that's probably not a problem. So we'll go ahead and open an itinerant vendor license for the mobile unit at 501 Lisbon Street for Pesky Maine Lobster. It's a public hearing.
I'm still seeing nothing on that, so we open and close that public hearing and we're moving on.
The victual is licensed for Antonio Brignio, doing business at Roadside Barbecue at 73 Lisbon Street.
Same, opening, closing that public hearing at the same time, please.
Comments? Okay, and special entertainment permit for Frank's Restaurant and Pub.
Same, opening, closing that public hearing, moving on.
All right, so next item is audience participation and response for agenda items.
Having received nothing on that, we're going to dispense with that and move right along, Twyla.
Okay, we passed our consent agenda. We did our school boiler, so we're on to 2020-105, the Moxie Festival tabled vote from 5/5/2020. So on the floor right now is a motion to cancel the 2020 Moxie Festival.
You guys saw a memo earlier in the day. If you didn't, I have copies here. If you could pass those down to those gentlemen there. And I believe Mark was here earlier. Mark's position at this time, given the restrictions and the delay for governor, he's recommending that we actually cancel Moxie in its time place that it stands and put the energies into something potentially the first weekend in October. Whether we actually use the umbrella of Moxie or if it's actually something that's more local in nature to kind of celebrate coming out the other side of whatever we're in the middle of at this point, he would like to put the energies into something positive. Some of the dialogue that you guys have heard in the last meeting was the initiative from our economic development director for trying to get the businesses reopening and talking about outdoor seating events or something of that nature. They were recommending to see if we can't actually explore something of that. At that time, a one-day festival would be considered, and things that would actually be able to be done would be the race, whether it actually be virtually or in person, car show, the fireworks, and potentially something downtown for seating and dining of that nature as well too. So that would be the recommendation for here to be able to put the energy into it. In that regard, Mark makes the point of delivering in that same point that we made at the last discussion on this is not actually looking for anything for support from any businesses, because now is not the time to be asking for anything. What we would actually do is they should be zero to no cost, and the items that you've actually listed actually either generate a positive or it would be based on the participants. So that would be his recommendation. Questions?
I like the idea. I would recommend that it not go past Columbus Day or Old Columbus Day.
He had a weekend, first weekend in October.
Yeah,
If we do not commit to the first weekend in October, I would actually say that we canceled and we're done.
Yeah, because it gets pretty chilly.
Because now you're muddy as heck and we can't even agree to a date. Yeah. So that would be my recommendation as well, Don.
Yeah, okay.
Everybody clear as mud?
Are we making any motion on this?
Yeah, I need a motion.
Your motion is on the table to cancel the 2020 Moxie Festival.
And put the energies into something the first weekend in October.
Amend that.
Community related.
I'll make the motion.
So,
is that an amendment?
yeah, I think that's what you're going to do, is make an amendment to.
So I'll make an amendment to cancel the Moxie Festival for this year and look to do something in October a little bit more on a different scale or level.
Quite specifically the first weekend in October.
Yes.
That way it draws a line in that sand.
Yep.
I'll second that.
I have a first and a second. Any questions?
Okay, so the amendment is to do something the first weekend in October.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm seeing no questions. All in favor?
So the amendment passes? Is that 7-0?
Yes.
Counselor Ganong? Okay. And so the main motion is to cancel the 2020 Moxie Festival and to do something the first weekend in September. So the main motion as amended, the vote is?
We have October.
First weekend in October. Did I say wrong?
September.
Sorry. I wrote it October, though. That's good.
I want to make sure it was right in the record.
On that topic, for the listening public, to anybody that's listening, I've had a lot of questions. I'm sure Cassie has as well, too, and I know Mark has, representing the Moxie Committee. If at all possible, the consideration for a parade and or concert at that event. We got outdoor seating. The fact that one of the things that was discussed is we set up the stage right there on downtown, is the fact that there's no reason that we couldn't consider live music to be able to make that happen as well too. Those are the other pieces that were actually part of Mark's presentation.
We're going to close the street. I think the stage right there on Union, right in front of the library, would be all right.
Right. Something of that nature. So block party-ish to be able to do so. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if anybody has heard Mark in the last 3 months, the fact is one of his key sound bites that he would have for anybody listening is he is all about hope and wants to remain positive associated with that. So if we can do something positive, that's where he wants to live. So thank you.
So you need a vote on your main motion as amended.
Didn't we?
Oh, we're still waiting.
We voted on the amendment. All right. Motion as amended. All in favor?
7-0. Would have passed.
Thank you for the point of order.
Sorry.
Next item.
Order 2020-106, the amendments to Chapter 70, zoning. Adopt the new ordinance for accessory dwelling units, amend the definitions, and amend the land use table. This is a second reading. It's a roll call vote required.
I'll make that motion.
2nd.
Any discussion? Roll call, Twyla.
Okay, Counselor Fellows,
Yes.
Counselor Colby,
Yes.
Counselor Ganong,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Ward,
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle,
Yes.
and Counselor Albert.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 nays, order passed.
Next item?
Order 2020-107 to amend Chapter 46, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Article 3, Streets Acceptance Standards, Section 4667, the documents required prior to council acceptance. This is a second reading. Roll call vote required.
Need a motion?
Make the motion.
Need a second?
A second.
You guys can fight it out.
Sean's got it. He's on top of it.
All right, any discussion? Everybody clear? Roll call, please.
Counselor Albert,
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Ward,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Ganong,
Yes.
Counselor Colby, and Counselor Fellows.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next item, Twyla?
Order 2020-108 to award the paving bid.
We have Randy.
He's coming. Around the corner. There he is.
Look at that swagger.
Good evening, everyone. Randy Sear, Public Works Solid Waste Director. And I'm sure you guys all got the bid results. Just want to go over a couple things. As everybody knows, my tonnage was inflated for bidding purposes and bidding purposes only. Basically threw a number out there. We have a new bidding process, trying to get used to that. So with the inflated quantities that I listed for tonnage, basically put us, into a higher, if you looked at the numbers, they were quite expensive. But if you went with actual numbers, I think Glidden Excavation, they came in with great numbers as per ton, laying it down per ton, with the 7215 for 12.5 and the 7350 for 9.5. And with the figures I come up with, we should be in the $489,000 range to get all the roads that I want to get done. If shimming comes in at a little bit less, it should bring our price down to a point where I think we'll be at the 475 mark or very, very close. So, of course, we're only going to award to Glidden the 475, which is our max. But I'm saying to council that I believe that we can get everything that we want to get done this year in my paving list for that price.
For the 475, not the 489, right?
The 475. If it comes to the 489, then, I probably got places in, let me back up a little bit. I told Diane this today and she was awful excited, but I talked to Allstate and we come up lower in our tonnage for our past 2-year paving period. So we might be getting some money left over from that.
Oh, nice.
So if that's the case, I don't know the tonnages yet, but if that's the case, it could probably supplement what I'm lacking here.
The other key soundbite on that, too, is included in this was an addendum to add Graziano Square that we talked about, so that paving is in that as well.
That's correct.
That was the neighborhood of 9-10 grand. Is that what that estimate came out at?
8,700, yeah.
Yeah. So take the 475 plus 8,700 is what you have available. So we're dancing right around that figure that Randy keeps presenting.
That's correct.
So one of the key sound bites for this is don't get spooked on the 497 because that's using his estimates to be able to level the playing field across all bids that were received.
Right.
There were new players in this year's bid, and frankly, I think it's good because the key soundbite here is that you're going to pay on actual. Forget the estimate. The estimate is to be able to get the guy in the door to know you're getting the best value for the dollar.
That's right. I mean, all the other incidentals that they have, with their mobilization and all the other fees, their spraying of the tack and everything else and their hand placement and all those numbers, those all play a part of it. But the biggest part, of course, is when you're talking, 3,300 ton of 9.5 and almost 1,500 tons of 12.5. That's where you're making up the majority of money. And that's what sets people apart. So we've had them, as high as almost $90 a ton, in some companies, and this company was the lowest, and the other incidentals that they had listed were very close in just about every category.
Do you want a motion for discussion, or?
I will make the motion for discussion in that regard because I would personally vouch for Glidden Excavation. I've worked with them extensively in Lewiston, and the fact that I'm very encouraged with them actually coming down to do it. Not that anything's slighting anybody that we've had in past, but I think it is moving this forward. I have the motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Question, Fern.
So Randy, when we do this type of bid and we actually look at a number like that, and there's no, do they know going into the bid? I looked at big specs, but they're pretty broad. There are a lot of information out there now, which is good. But if we were to say only, for some reason, use half the tonnage, is that price still a compatible price? I mean, is there somewhere written into that bid that we're not required to use a full tonnage that they're estimating? Because anytime you buy more product, you get a better deal. So if we actually drop that price down and only use less product, is there a lock-in on this that regardless how much we use, it's set that base price is still there?
Well, I talked to Mr. Peeler, who was the one who did the estimates, and his comment to me was, I told him, I said, we're not, we can't afford the $629. That's not in our budget. Our budget is the $475. And he says, it's all on quantity, so I don't think you would get the same deal on, let's say, 5,000 ton as you would 2,500 ton. I mean, because it's in quantity. I mean, that's how they're going to make their money.
But the tonnage is locked in regardless if we.
The price per ton is locked in, and they know we got a cap of 475. That's
so it's
including.
A known. It's not. It's something that's not going to come up as a surprise anymore.
No,
so that was my point.
No.
But what I would say with you as well too on that is that Lewiston last year, actually the previous year, I apologize, we were up to like 12 change orders because players like Pila will work with you to be able to expend that 475. So if you can get what is done and you're looking to spend the 475, Randy's got a house list.
Oh, absolutely.
That's longer than what we presented.
We have a lot more need than we have material, so I mean, I don't think that's a problem.
Right.
So and the other good thing about it is that we are going to be able to get WAG Road done. So that's one more plus, because with the tonnages that I figured out, it may take a little bit of work with the Public Works to bring some of the reclaim back over there so they can spread it, as far as trucking goes, but we can do that. If it takes that for me to get that little bit of road done, so be it. It's just a trucking thing. But we'll know that's the last one on the chopping block, so when I take the quantities and get to that point, we'll see if that actually is if that'll play. So we should be good.
And they do monthly billings. So your installments, as they work through their way through the progression of the season, Randy will know, I'm 475 less 230 this month. This is what I have left to work with.
Gotcha. I just want to make sure everything's straightforward, that's all. So.
Yeah.
If he runs out of time, they'll be looking at this in the spring, same as they are with Allstate right now.
He told me they can get it done this year, no problem.
Absolutely.
Because he said, I told him about as long as, the reason why we go out early is to try to get on that list early. And he said that, it's a good idea because, he's come July 1st, he's going to get pretty booked up. But like he said, he can come in and do the shim right off, let us do all our catch basin raising and all that stuff, get all that done. Then it'll be right top of the list and get the finished coat put on and we'll be good shape.
Right. Questions of Randy? Anybody else? There's a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, 12.
Order 2020-109 to award the Pine Woods Road bid.
Okay, and the same on that one. We've had a lot of interest in the job. They've ranged. There was quite a range in the prices, but we actually came in under budget, which was really good. We had a set budget of like 1.5 million, and we're coming in just a little bit below 1.1 million, and that's with the alternative. the contractor in mind. The base bid came in at $997,594, and the alternate was $97,977, for a total of $1,095,571.80, and that would be Gendron and Gendron. So it's my recommendation that we award that to Gendron and Gendron.
Make a motion for discussion?
Second, please.
Second.
Go.
It's amazing looking those bids, the difference in the columns. I mean, I realize the end number is actually somewhat close, but when you start seeing traffic control ranging anywhere from $60,000 to $300,000 on the line, and you actually see, for reseeding loom on lawns anywhere from say $30,000 to $130,000, it just wonders that you just got to wonder if everybody's looking at the same project. You know what I mean? But
right.
And I realize that's, there's certain numbers they can work with, certain ones they can, and they put numbers in different areas to make things work. But it's just amazing, looking at it just from one variety to the next. And when you take a project that's $1 million and actually going to spend $300,000 in traffic control, it's
mind-boggling, because that's a side street basically.
It's a side street, and I don't really know. I mean, so I would assume that in our bid spec, there's actually required for them to keep traffic flowing and all that type of stuff.
Yeah,
so
there
they
is.
actually have to do that, but on a road like this, not 196. You know what I mean?
No.
But again, I mean, I totally. That's why we have estimates, right? That's why people give bids,
Exactly.
and that's where it comes up. And I feel we're in a good spot. It's just look at the numbers; it's quite amazing the difference in where they come up with their figures. That's all.
And again, we had a lot of participation in this bid also, so which was nice. With how busy everybody's been, I think we're lucky to get as many bidders as we did, and it's not just the same 2 or 3.
Right. Any other questions on that? All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
All right, guys, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Randy, could I ask a question of Randy
sure.
for a second? Because
Sure.
I won't get to see him. 2 questions. One, how fast do you think the grass is going to grow in Graciano Park? It's still brown.
I know. I've been out there today and moving the sprinklers around, and you're starting to see a little bit of sprouting coming up, so which is promising, which is good. And Bill will guarantee everything anyway, so if he knows we're putting the water to it, it doesn't come out, he'll come back.
Yeah, we put it down right in the heat of the thing. So.
Oh, yeah. So we've had no moisture, but now that we've got, Bill came over and hooked us up for a meter, and that made it a lot easier. We had the guy, I put my guys out there in the morning or in the afternoon spraying it down, but 400 gallons doesn't cut it, so we're hopeful in the next few days to a week it should be sprouting up in good shape.
Good. The second question is, when you're reopening the transfer station, you don't specifically mention the trash and leaves. That's considered also acceptable,
Yes,
right?
yeah, the brush and everything's, we're back open, we're taking, the sofas, the TVs, and the whole 9.
Okay.
Been very busy up there. I increased the flow also to 7 cars up there at a time. It's been going really well. The guy said it was very busy today. Collected a pretty good, decent amount of money. People have been holding on to this brush and all this stuff for a while. So they've been right out straight busy today, and everything went really well. There was no real jams, no complaining, no real big phone calls today in the office. So on another note, we did take delivery today of our new compact trailer. So I just wanted everybody to know that it's here. We just have to change one line around, and then that's in service. So just to let everybody know that's here.
Are you pulling that gatehouse back any, or how are you envisioning the flow
No,
to get?
we pulled it back some, and where we've got it now, it works well because we're letting 7 cars, and they go around the cones. And if, let's say, somebody was dropping off a chair or let's say, but that they had, household trash, they're able to pull up to the shack, and he'll be next in line because he's already in the queue, so to speak. So we'll let him go out front of somebody else that's in line to go dump the trash. But it really, talking to the guys, they said it went really well.
Okay. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you for the listening public. I
Yeah.
appreciate you talking to the dot.
All right.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Come on in, sir. Next item, Twyla.
Order 2020-110 to award the Phase 2 sewer project bid.
Good evening, Steve Avioli, Sewer Superintendent. We opened these bids for this project last Wednesday, the 27th, and had a little bidder came in, Gendron throughout this process. Everything was going well until today, when we received notification that Gendron, they had an issue in their bid. There was an error that was made. This error was actually discussed the day bids were open. One decision was made. They came back today saying, no, that was the wrong decision. They wanted to change their bid. They still actually would have been low bid, but they decided to withdraw their bid, from this process. And, their bid would have been $100,000 more than it was, so it would have been $1,130, 311, or $1,130,311.10, which would have kept them approximately $8,000 below the next lowest bidder. But they decided to pull their bid anyway. We are now looking to award the project to St. Laurent & Son if you will approve that for us. I'm assuming you all have this information of what happened and what occurred today.
I'd make the motion for discussion.
I'll second it.
Any questions of the action?
Yeah, if I may,
Please.
Mr. Chair. Did they give any reason why they were withdrawing their bid?
I was not told that there was a particular reason why. Okay. There was the way the process works is the engineer put the amount of units in place. They were asked to give a unit price, and then you would tabulate a total off of that unit price. They put in a unit price, and then their total price actually came in $100,000 less, and it was only for one item. So it wasn't like it was that one number should have carried for both lines, and it didn't. It should have been the same on both.
In short, mostly it's usually for saving face, because when you actually put a bid together and it's got a grand total and the grand total has actually been published, when you actually have it out there that you're going to increase that cost by $100,000, that actually puts you in a category of potentially non-responsive because it's not in the format. So we reached out to Mr. Gendron to be able to do so, and he chose to actually pull his bid.
If I may, the one good thing about it with the other contracts, we still had some few people, good people bidding on the project, so it's not like we're actually at a loss. We just got to pick the next one in line, right? Correct, yes. And the next one in line is St. Laurent, who actually just wrapped up our previous sewer replacement projects. Yep, which is in good standing after that, correct? Yes. So.
And the other part of it, too, is the fact that you're looking at the two projects in the same area, and the fact is a certain level, the fact that can one contractor actually be effectively managing both? Yep. The fact is, I don't want to speak for Mr. Gendron, but that would have been factored into his decision as well.
I think so. I think there's just happened to be a lot of work going on out this year, and then people got to pick and choose what they really put their
commitment to one. Right. Any other questions of Steve? All in favor?
Order
Thank
passed,
you.
7-0.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item.
Order 2020, number 111, the emergency ordinance to promote physical distancing and business operations in village areas.
Welcome, sir.
Hello, everyone.
This is thing 2. Remember the hands and all the conversations on our virtual meeting?
Yeah, that's right.
Appreciate your effort through that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So, we all know it's been a challenging time for businesses. There's a lot of unpredictability in terms of when they'll be able to open up. I think we started this conversation on May 27th, and at that time there was the expectation that restaurants could open on June 1st with limited seating. And then after our conversation, within a day or so, that had been pushed back indefinitely. So I think we're in an environment where there's a lot of uncertainty, businesses are struggling, and even if businesses were allowed to open tomorrow, I think we heard Superintendent Green mention the fact that as a community, we're all over the board, and some folks might rush out and go to a restaurant or go to a retail store tomorrow. Some would be more uncomfortable and hang back. And so this proposal here, worked with Diane and the town council or the town attorney on, was to put the town in a position to respond to businesses, to be flexible to be creative in a responsible way so that they can get outside, social distance, create opportunities for public get-together, and do it in a way that's thoughtful. We've had communications with the businesses downtown. Of course, you've got different needs at different times of day. Parking is a big consideration. So there's still conversations to be had to fine-tune an approach. But Parks and Rec, Mark Stevens is on board to help with tables. Randy Sear's been great, Public Works, in terms of thinking through logistics, how to put street barriers in place, what the budget might be, what the time constraints would be. Chief Hagan, Police Department's been wonderful in terms of his input on public safety, and will be a good partner going forward to make sure that any solution that we put in place not only works for the businesses, but also is safe, puts the town in a good position from a liability standpoint, and most importantly, helps the businesses succeed. So I think, being on the call with Attorney Stockford and Diane, really the idea here was we don't have all the answers yet. The answers will be different, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood. We want to have the opportunity here to have some discretion to move forward relatively quickly with the right players having that conversation, and have the discretion to do that. And really a pilot sort of trial type phase here. Hopefully this doesn't go on for much longer, but it's hard to know how long it will go on. And so this would provide the tools for the town and the various departments within the town to work together and to coordinate with the businesses to make sure that whatever solutions we put in place will help them in what they want to see. So that's where we're at right now. I think there are some folks downtown who would take advantage of it in pretty short order. We laid out in that memo a few different scenarios. There's a range from a big event where you shut down Main Street and bring everybody together, to what I think coming through the conversations is probably more important is the ability for these businesses to, particularly restaurants, to generate revenue with a predictable space outside. We all know it's Maine, so weather is going to be a challenge, but at the very least, they'll have that dedicated space with pretty minimal impact to pedestrian or traffic flow, that if the weather's good, they can put tables out and they can do business. So it's add some predictability to it in an otherwise uncertain time.
Make a motion?
A second for discussion.
And the motion is, Twyla?
To adopt the emergency ordinance to promote physical distancing and business operations in the village area.
Areas, multiple, right?
Areas.
So I have a question. If we, Mr. Chair.
Go. Yeah, I'm looking right at you.
If we enact this, then we have to do something else or it expires in 90 days, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I
So
don't know if we're thinking anything permanently or not, but whatever.
the memo that you presented actually has 4 different alternatives. Any of those that are actually, in your mind, more palatable than others that you could speak to help with us?
Yeah, I think, I mentioned, I think it's a combination really, that day-to-day predictability to have revenue coming in combined with perhaps a bigger event once in a while to bring folks together. I think there's an opportunity, we put it as number 1 in those scenarios, and that is to look at eliminating a few parking spots on the west side of Main Street, allowing businesses to use the full breadth of the sidewalk, which is around 9 feet, and then use what's currently parallel parking for the pedestrian throughway. We could use the waste concrete blocks from Auburn Concrete. They're 2 feet wide, 2 feet tall, 6 feet long. We can get a truckload of those, 26 of them at a time, for about $1,500 delivered. Randy could install them. That would provide a nice sort of safety barrier, and then we would need to think about aesthetics, whether it's planters or other things that we could put on top of those to make it look nice and inviting. But that's a pretty inexpensive, semi-permanent fix. We would lose a handful of parking spots depending on how you originated it. And I think, that's one idea that would provide a balance of not a tremendous loss of parking, a predictable use of the sidewalk with pretty minimal impact to pedestrian flow.
Can I ask a question just on that?
Yeah.
That one item. Opportunity to pick up takeout on Friday.
Yep.
observation while I'm sitting there waiting for the order to be handed through the window. The fact that 2 dump trucks actually trying to navigate that right-hand turn right there at that corner are actually in the oncoming traffic lane. How does that work with that Jersey barrier right there at that corner? Can we explore that before we greenlight it?
Yes, definitely.
Because I saw it, 2 trucks in 5 minutes. And the fact is they are clearly in the oncoming lane, and that car now has nowhere to go with a Jersey barrier.
Gotcha. This would be, these are the parallel parking is 8 feet wide.
Yeah.
So you could have that barrier set in. You need 4 feet width for ADA, so that leaves a 4-foot barrier. So that would be inside. So the way I would see it, having driven a truck before, big 30-foot truck, is that those barriers are in place. If they weren't able to miss that concrete barrier, they would have hit a car there. So sometimes you got to back up a little bit and maneuver, and people got to pause and give you room. It's a great question, and these are the type of things that we would work through. I think whatever the case may be, a next step would be a meeting with individual businesses who raised their hand and had a scenario, and that would include Chief Hagan, that would include myself, that would include anybody else that was actionable, and these type of things would be worked through. But you're hitting on an important point here, and I think it's something that to be upfront about as you consider this idea, is that it's something new, and there's going to be some unknowns that pop out. There's going to be some different opinions about how it shakes out. There'll be a learning curve. We'll have to adapt. We'll tweak a little bit, and that's part of this. And really, that's the fundamental goal of this is to be able to adapt to a situation that's very, very troubling and stressful for businesses. So you're raising good points. There's probably 7 other points that are just like that, little nuances that could make this go good or bad, and we'll work through those and make sure that we've thought as many as we can and be able to pivot quickly to those that we haven't addressed yet.
Thank you.
I think one of the things we got to really take to heart is the idea that, we may be lost a few parking spots for a while, but if we don't take any action, we may not have to worry about parking. So, that's a bigger concern. So.
Right, no, that's why I was landing there, because the other one that actually has my full attention is the fact is scenario number 4. The fact is I have very little, if any, heartburn. The fact that I would like to see the fact is if we could actually make this a Friday, Saturday night kind of deal.
Yeah.
The fact is because I'm not sold that there's a hardship if you actually closed off the block back from the library to Mings to that corner to say that that's any inconvenience to anybody.
Right.
I would agree, and I was actually walking down there this morning, and I think Tracy actually passed along an idea, and that is if you know where the hardware store or the flooring store is at, you can almost close down just the from 196 to that first alleyway.
Yep.
You get a lot. You still have the traffic flow behind. You have access to all that parking, and you're really creating space for the businesses to spread out. The restaurants in particular. Retail opens up. Folks can go into retail. Obviously, we want to create space on sidewalks if they want to use that, and we want to think about this. Hopefully, as this goes on over the summer, there's a lot of different opportunities to add dynamic stuff to it. Performers, folks who want to set up an easel and do a painting thing. We could hopefully layer in additional activities and different energies to it. But I think there's a lot of ways to do this, and one of the beauties of those concrete blocks is that we could set them up in one way, but they're almost like Legos, and Randy could come in and move them around if we had a different idea or saw an opportunity to make it better. So, and I think, to your point, Chairman, this is something we can do on a regular basis. I think we're going to see communities who are doing this now do it almost permanently every summer going forward. Because I think it's going to add a lot of value in ways that people haven't really experienced yet, and it's hard to picture it unless you've experienced it. So I think this could be something just like Zoom. Maybe on a snow night in January, we'll be meeting by Zoom instead of driving in. It's a new tool in our toolbox. I think what we're playing with here will ultimately become something that we'll do in some iteration or some form in the future, because it'll add that much value.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So frequency, that was the thing I was going to hit, and Alan stole my thunder, and thank you for doing that. So yeah, I think that the frequency piece, especially in light of the change with the Moxies Festival brought up tonight, I think we're in a unique opportunity with that number 4 scenario, because we could really capitalize, and not just for the obvious businesses in the form of the restaurants. I really think the retail shops, if the restaurants are successful, then that drives exactly what we want, which is a population with responsible social distancing or responsible opportunities for them to get out and enjoy without worrying, or at least minimizing that worry. But it also allows the retail establishments to get more folks coming through, more foot traffic. And I just think that it can present a really great blueprint if we get to the October period. Well, we don't have to wait to get to the October period. If we have some success in June and July, particularly July and August, then it sets the table nicely for some things
Live
that we want to
music,
do
you
in
can do anything.
October as well. And then I love the idea. I love to hear you say that this goes from a temporary kind of response to a difficult situation to become something that's the new norm and a great opportunity for these businesses to expand, not just in the falls. Because if it takes off in the falls, then it can certainly take off on Main Street, Village Street, excuse me, in Lisbon. So there's great chance. I like it. Thank you for being so creative with this.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Oh,
Eric
go ahead.
and then
No,
Don.
go right ahead.
I was just saying this is an exciting new idea. I've been talking with the LDC and with Brett for some time, and I just like the idea that Portland's doing it, Rockland's doing it, and it might even influence how we put our input into the redevelopment of Main Street downtown. So, if that ever gets done, but so it's exciting to me.
I would like to see us, focus a little bit on the idea of, with any of these settings, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge for the curbside delivery of the takeout. So, if we were to, especially on the evenings, that we're able to block off the entire road. There's some parking down along 196 in front of the Oakey Bank, which is a Union Building now, and in front of Frank's. That is actually, it's always a little concerning when people come roll over the hill at 40, 50 miles an hour and come traveling through with big trucks. Even way back, Lisbon Development Committee was trying to find ways to actually settle the traffic down a little bit coming down the hill. And we thought of multiple different ways of doing that by signage or by warnings or by some type of some type of structure to actually just keep people realize they're coming into a downtown area, not just they need to power up so they can actually get through that intersection as quickly as possible. So it'd be nice to see what we could do coming down through there to actually, whether it's the idea of running cones down, an area so people can pull off and actually have an area to park, which already is parking now, but actually it's not as defined as it should be at times. And maybe using some of the new signage that the police chief has, the temporary flashing lights saying you're speeding, slow down. So I think we can incorporate a lot of things in there. And going along with Don's idea, this has been a thought all along, is how do we actually get people to actually just chill out coming through town a little bit and not try to get through as quick as they can, So some trucks rolling through that intersection at times, that's for sure.
We could always look into what Brunswick has, those little built-in speed bumps.
Oh yeah, those difficult ones.
Yeah, those little loop-de-loops.
Yeah.
Someone's going to get all Dukes of Hazzard on those.
Yeah. But either way, it's just a thought that it's one of those things where we actually stop putting barriers up and actually stop making more outdoor seating. We actually are taking away from the curbside pickup part of it. So we're going to have to try to address how we make that safe.
To your point, friend, maybe there's something there, and I don't know where DOT is at in planning, if that's all set in stone, but maybe the way we lay out that intersection slows people down. And I say we, but collaboration, maybe offer up hey, what are your thoughts, DOT, on how can we, because it is a raceway.
Right.
So how do you make that so it's maybe a little less of a raceway? People have to understand I'm coming into a curve or something that's going to naturally make me as a driver say I got to slow down here because I could get tagged. Versus right now it's just a straight through.
I think Diane got plenty of feedback back last time when we changed it a little bit.
Well, they're not doing anything in the intersection now. That's completely off the table. The money went into the Main Street project. That's why we put the money into the lights and changed that.
But when we start having discussions about the idea of crossing into the Rumble area, those safe access across the road will play a big role into that. Signaling the definition of where that is, the coloring, maybe the idea of really a defined walkway that actually you can't miss. You know what I mean?
Does DOT have to approve anything we do that goes through in there? Because it's...
We had a really good meeting with them. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, we sat down and talked to them about the Rumbo site and the rail crossing and just the pedestrian access in general, and they were very supportive of redoing the intersection with pedestrian crossing to Main Street. So I think they'll be wide open to that, and that's been our plan over the last 6 months or so to apply for more CDBG funding to do a redo of that, because whatever we do with Marumbo, you'd need safe access to that one way or another. And
if you raise the pedestrian crossing just a little bit, so it's half an inch up above the pavement, so people would slow down for a little bump in the road or something, right?
Yeah, and I think they were amenable to pulling exactly pulling those railroad signs out.
Yeah.
That take up a lot of space. That opens up the corner. We can do a lot more creative stuff with it. So it's all good stuff.
Kind of traffic calming measures to get people
Yeah,
to slow
exactly.
down through there.
Get a statue in there,
Right.
something good.
Rumble strips or something.
Yeah, I like it.
Sweet sky bridge going right across, forget that, just walk right over.
Engineering.
Yeah.
Big tube, you get in the pneumatic tube and get carried over.
Here we go. This is getting good now.
I think we're moving forward, so I'm ready for a vote.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
sorry.
Yes, Mr. Gunnar.
Just one question in regarding to this. So we do all this. What's the communication plan to getting out the word to the public that we're doing this and these streets may be closed off or something else is going on?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I thought about it a little bit different way, but similar. I think this could be potentially pretty exciting, and so you're thinking of the public, I'm thinking of the media for a press release to put Lisbon out there as a proactive community, but I think they go hand in hand, and so I think the key message is that we want to do the right thing, we want to be adaptable, whatever we do is going to be safe, make sure that we take into account pedestrian safety, and we're looking for input for abutters as well, that they're not negatively impacted beyond a reasonable way. So I think we get the word there as soon as we can in that vein. We're being proactive, we'll be open. This is an iterative process. It's something that we'll work on, and input's always going to be welcome. Feedback loops will help us improve, and they can contact me or the manager, whoever they want to do.
On that same topic, the tone of what we're actually having here with the four scenarios actually targeting specifically Lisbon Falls. I know you've actually, downtown Lisbon Falls, you've actually reached out to other businesses and what we could actually do. Is there any other key sound bites that you actually can do for something of that nature for the other businesses that you've heard?
Yeah, I think I heard Randy mention, Don asked a question about Graziano Square with the grass. I think, Village Street was intentionally included in this because there's an opportunity there to bring some life and some activity and get those businesses that are there out on the street, and perhaps have a commemoration for Graziano Square, do something in a way, we want to be sensitive and got some great input about, to your point, Norm, bringing more businesses onto Main Street and making it more dynamic. We also don't want to bring in competitors for the existing businesses. So thinking about how a food truck would play on Main Street versus Village Street, just in terms of who the vendors are there and who we want to support. So maybe there's an opportunity, Norm, to your point, about Village Street, not Norm, I'm sorry, Alan, about Village Street and doing some stuff over there to bring some life to it and kick off a new season there.
Right on. I appreciate it. The point that I'm making is the fact is we've always said here we have two downtowns, and the fact is I don't want to put any energy or perception that we're focusing on one. The fact is we have an economic development director that's actually interested in all businesses in our community, so I applaud your effort. Thank you.
A strong kickoff in that Village Street area might be just what it takes for a developer to understand that there is strong participation on both sides of the town, and that all it takes is one match to kind of light the powder keg over there. So.
And for the listening dot, if you own a local business and you haven't actually found Brett yet, then you're living under a rock. Get on board. He's a receptive audience. Please play along. Thank you.
Always subtle. Always subtle.
Yeah, as a chainsaw, absolutely.
Like a brick in the face.
This would be a roll call vote. I forgot to mention that in the beginning when you get to
Any other? I'm hearing no other questions. We've asked to move the questions, so roll call, please.
Oh, okay. Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
Counselor Albert?
Yes.
Counselor Colby?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Ganong?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed for the adoption of that ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time
Drive
tonight.
safe.
Drive fast. Take chances.
Under other business is council committee reports.
School. We had.
I think we kind of hit that one pretty hard today.
That horse has been whipped.
Yep.
Planning was canceled due to technical difficulties, right?
No.
Planning board?
No.
They had a meeting.
They had a meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, how did it
Actually
go?
had a meeting
I
and-
apologize. I
and-
misunderstood the.
Well,
The
the planned streaming didn't go as planned.
That's what I
And,
understood.
it ultimately did get recorded, but it was not viewable live during the hearing. So, at any rate, they kind of skipped the issue. They had the hearing. The questions that were emailed in were discussed, and then they set site visits, I think, for 6 o'clock for the solar farm and for 6:30 for the wood processing yard on the 11th of June.
Where's the solar going in?
Ricker Farm.
Oh, right. Yes, thank
Right
you.
behind the houses on Mill Street.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the other one is on, what do I want to say? What's the street?
Oh, is it
Summer Street.
Summer Street, yeah.
Yeah, Summer Street. Not Winter Street, Summer Street.
Summer Street, yeah.
On the upper end. So, yeah.
Thank you. LDC.
Should have kept Bert while he was here. Yeah, we actually had last meeting was a Zoom meeting. It was pretty active. We're hoping next meeting will be a live meeting, possibly down the Rumble site, so we can have some social distancing and play it all safe and start the dialogue going of where we want to move forward with and just start the process of discussion so we can try to get input from everybody and try to make some of those visioning type processes he talked about in our last meeting. So I would encourage anybody, as Alan did, if you have any questions, please reach out to Brett. He is a good resource for making sure everybody's on task and that everything goes as plans.
Conservation, I have nothing. Rec?
Moxie's canceled.
County, nothing. Library, sir?
I believe the library opened yesterday for limited operations, so I don't know, Diane, if
It's
you...
going really well. Diane Netto gave me an update today. They had like 40 people in today, and everybody's doing the social distancing, and they're very happy that it's back open again.
Sure, people out of reading material.
Not to mention all the other things that
Right,
you get, DVDs and such, so yeah.
Oh, very cool. That's good. It's a busy week as a lot of our buildings get to be reopened. Water, sir?
Water? Nothing.
I didn't think so. Okay. Town managers?
So we received the $90,000 check from CMP yesterday or today. I can't remember what day. I haven't deposited it yet, but I wanted to run that by you tonight. I think right now, until we figure out what we're going to do with it, to just stick it into a capital improvement account. I'll create a new one, and then you can redesignate it as you see fit.
Anybody in disagreement to that approach? What that basically does is it doesn't put it so it closes to general fund. You've already earmarked it because we didn't actually have it set aside for any purpose. Now we have 93 grand because rest assured something is going to come up in the next year or two.
May I make a point on that?
Yep.
I just want to bring together something that actually back a while when we were on council, the last, if you want to call it, downfall that we were a part of, which hopefully we don't get in the grips of, where, you know, we as a community were trying to figure out how we actually cut costs, and we're even thinking, what lights can we turn off? I mean, think about that process, right? I mean, when you get it to be a town government saying we need to shut lights off to save money so we can pay our bills, that's pretty dramatic, and not every community went through the same thing, and you know, the town actually had stepped forward and actually done a lot of work, and it's interesting to see that it's actually the next downturn that we actually get the money for this. You know what I mean? So isn't that kind of ironic?
That action never took any effect. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so we cut all these lights and we didn't reap any of the benefits, and now that we're actually in another downturn potentially, we're actually getting the check. So it is, some things work in strange ways, but we're not going to ask. We just say thank you, right?
Yeah, it's a good thing that we did
That's a
the
good
LED
answer.
changeover, because we never would have known. Or at least I wouldn't have known.
And that was an additional piece too.
Yes.
But by having that
Yes.
done, there was an additional savings that increased what we got. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and also, we have installed the street lights back on the poles across from our entrance and exit areas. I don't know if you noticed that. You'll notice that tonight.
Good.
when you go out, so.
You got two of them on both ends?
One on both, one on each. Originally, they put it on the wrong pole, and I
really?
let them know. And then that very same day, they put it on the right pole. So we have two lights,
two lights,
which is good, I think.
how we
You have
used to
one
have.
at the exit and one at the entrance.
That's how it always used to be, Diane, until this situation a decade ago, we pulled some lights in. We probably shouldn't have taken those.
If it didn't meet the requirement, it came down, is what it was. I mean,
Yeah, whoever made that decision was wrong, because clearly during winter, that period before we have snow on the ground, that is hectic coming in.
I think if
making
you
it-
look back, it was one of those things where we, as a town, said, well, we're going to take the street light out front of your house, but to make it fair, we're going to take our street light off too. You mean so?
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of those things where everything was give and take, and if it didn't actually meet the requirement of the safety committee that actually looked at the lights, actually they came down. So, which is what it was, right?
The other thing is we are planning to open the front doors on a limited basis starting Monday, the 8th. That's as long as we get the plexiglass in. It's scheduled to come in tomorrow and be installed on Thursday. If something should happen, then that's all subject to change. We're still dealing with the public the same way we've been doing for the last 2 months, is over the phone through the drop box. It's been working well. We've still been servicing everybody. And there's lines out there. I don't know if you've seen them before when you're driving by, but they're all doing their social distancing, and
it's Carhart
well.
style.
I'll tell you that from what I've heard and seen from feedback regarding the staff's performance during this has been nothing but phenomenal. Great feedback about interaction when people are asking how to go ahead and do it. We're seeing people respond and not only just saying here's how you can do it.
Yeah.
It's favorable. It's they're excited about it. It's something that I think it goes beyond just thinking outside of the box and dealing with the situation. It's you got people who traditionally maybe aren't always excited about dealing with the town office are coming forward and saying I had a great experience, and it's usually going to the next step saying I had a great experience and staff was fantastic. They walked me through this process. It was relatively painless. I saw that line. I'm not paraphrasing. It was relatively painless. Like, how many people say that about a town office interaction? I don't mean that in a negative way. Any town office, like going to the DMV sometimes.
But you know, with everything being closed, that put a panic into some people, especially the ones that have purchased new cars. And it's like, how do I ever get that registered? And we're here to do that for them. So there's some relief there for them. And right now, I looked today on the revenues, and we're about $247,000 under collected right now on excise tax. Hopefully we can make up most of that before year end. I don't know, but I'll be watching it going into the new year because we're allowed to watch your June and July collections, and if they have expiration dates that were June 30th or before, I can reseat them back into this year, so I won't have that big revenue loss. They are allowing us to do that under GASB. So that's a lot of work to look at that and keep spreadsheets. I'm hoping I can come close, because I'm not even going to worry about that if I do. It's just going to be a lot of extra work. But
Mr. Chairman, Diane, have we actually thought about putting some signage outside for the people coming in that they can actually read what the process is going through?
We're going to when we open. We're not yet. It's all in Carol's office, all made up. We're going to allow 2 people to stand in the hallway, going out by the drop box. That's how you're going to enter, and you're going to exit through these front doors here where the handicap is. This whole area back here is going to be blocked off to the public because we wouldn't be able to manage it. If anybody needs to see anybody in this end of the building or Dennis, they're going to have to come through the police department. And then we'll take them to a conference room or to our office if it's large enough to do the social distancing. I did that today with somebody, and we met in the room right behind this council chambers. Yeah. We're going to be closing the doors, locking them at 4 o'clock. That's going to be important because we're not going to be able to get out of here in time. We'll be late if we don't
Takes you a
close the door.
half hour to cure.
It does.
Clear the queue.
So anybody that's standing outside at 4 o'clock, they're going to have to be serviced at another time. So
yep. As long as they know that, I think that's an important factor. And
that was in the communication that we sent out last week, and it's also going to be posted on the door.
And because we're all creatures of habit, and I know even just going to Aubuchon's, when you're used to going in and going out, then if you don't read all the signs, next thing you know, you're trying to go out the door, you have it for the last 10 years, and you find out that you're actually, doing something wrong and people yelling at you. It's just one of those things where the more
What do
The
you
more
mean I'm going
verbal
the wrong?
cues we can get, the better we are.
What do you mean I'm going the wrong way in the soup aisle?
That's right.
So we're only going to be able to service 2 people at the front counter because of the way it's set up, 1 person at the assessors, and possibly 1 with Dennis, and then 1 at Twyla's window. So only 5 people at a time can be in the building.
Are you
So,
plan-
and if somebody comes in, a family, like a husband and wife, that constitutes 2 people.
Do you plan on actually having a live body outside, actually explaining or guiding people, or is it going to be strictly by signage, you think?
The signage and will be available to,
Having
I mean,
someone
it's been working well the way it is outside right now doing the drop box, so I don't envision any problems that way. And we'll have the doors open, so we'll be able to wave one in as one leaves.
Are you envisioning at all the fact that allowing for somebody to still make an appointment if they need to, or feel less comfortable associated with that?
We can if they, if that's how they want to, but.
Not so much the drive-through. The fact is, the point that was actually made is everybody's got their own comfort level. And the fact is, in that regard, is if setting up an appointment that I actually don't have to stand in line and that type of deal, could you envision any of that, or is it strictly when we open the
I think we
door?
could work around that if somebody needed to do it by appointment, yeah.
Okay. I just think that anything that we can to actually,
Yep.
we got a good vibe to Councilor Albert's point. The fact is, people haven't had a negative experience associated with the town hall. Let's continue to do so because it's something we can at least do for customer service.
Yep.
Good.
That's all I have.
Next, Twyla, where are we?
Under council communications, there are no appointments, so.
Anybody, council and communications?
I'm not that up on it, but I know there's a potential graduation process set up for this weekend, the parade and stuff. I'm not sure if anybody has the details on that. Maybe we ought to share them just so people have an idea what's happening. So.
Graduation is, the actual ceremony itself will be streamed. It'll be streamed online. Students are only allowed to have 4 people present for their ceremony. And then at about noonish, we're going to be doing a graduation parade, heading out past the dump, up Capitol, down, taking a right down 196, going down School Street, Main Street, back up 196, and ending at Grazi Square. So they're asking that anybody in the community practice social distancing, but go stand out on the side of the road and cheer them all on.
Dan, do you know if the town has any taken any part in that as far as for?
Yes, I believe police and fire are going to be.
Police and
part
fire.
of
Sunday,
the parade.
Good. So it'll be something to see, and it won't be hopefully a woods fire. It'll be actually an exciting thing, right? Seems to be a trend in Lisbon these days.
All right.
I got something.
Please.
So, I just want to take a moment and, over the weekend, a longtime fixture here in our community passed away, Mr. Bob Tangway, owner of the Kitty Corner store for the longest time. Unfortunately, he passed away over the weekend, but I just want to take a moment to recognize him and his family and for their contributions to our community. Specifically, him and his band played a big part in the Moxie Festival for many years, up until he retired and moved on from the store. And also the store itself playing a huge role. So I just want to go ahead and send our condolences to his family and thank them for all of their years that they contributed to this fine community. Thank you.
Man, a great character, right? He was always interesting to talk to.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? We are to adjourn?
Nope, we have audience participation for new items, so at this time, a person who wished to address the council, although there are none here. So a point would be that those listening from Town Hall streams are now invited to send written comments emailed to A Ward, Lisbon ME, if there are any. If none, I want to remind the council that we have 4 documents to sign. We passed tonight the liquor licenses, the ordinance, and 2 outside on-premise alcohol sales applications.
Those are all new ones. Those are all new ones.
These are the new ones, right. So please sign those before you leave.
Those
Did you
are
get
not the ones
any
we signed
emails?
when we got here. These are all new.
No, these are all new.
New, yeah.
Some did sign the emergency ordinance.
MS4? Where's?
Oh, yeah, so the MS4 is in your packet under the consent agenda. So it's all the information. It's really an educational information that you should look at. This is a requirement every year for our permit. This is for permit year 7. It's our whole stormwater program. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be emailing you a survey that you need to complete and send back to me so that I can send on, because that's part of this requirement as well.
This is that piece where they mapped us out and they inflated our, so, and I know that in your email that you sent to us that we were working, where did it end? Why?
We sent in the.
I thought we were making progress that was positive.
We were, and we sent in a request for a waiver to be out of the program, but EPA is not hearing any of it. They
like our money in that thing.
So, Dan's thoughts on this is there's
It's a separate
nothing-
lawyer,
It's a
actually.
different lawyer. It was an environmental lawyer.
Okay, and so they're saying that's it, it's the end of the road?
Yeah, pretty much.
So there's no process to appeal that or take it to court? I mean, because it's pretty expensive in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the only reason I bring this up is that their numbers are wrong. The data that they used to put us into this is not accurate. So that's the only reason I'm passionate about this, is that if they're saying that this inflated, I think it was 15,000 people or some ridiculous number, we're 9,000. We've been 9,000 for as long as I can remember, or under that. So I would love for us, barring spending a ton of money on.
Find out what the process is now to appeal it then.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think, and this is just me, I think we draw a hard line in the sand. I think we fight them.
I don't think it's just you.
I think we fight them. I think we tell them, because I'm not comfortable with just saying, oh, well, we tried. Shove this right back in their face and say you're wrong, and your data's wrong, and it's junk, and show us how you got us in here. Because I'm tired of having to qualify. We have to pay money for this garbage, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and it's incrementally more after key years.
I'm not a big fan of spending taxpayer money on legal fees, but I think this is all day long makes sense considering what we're dumping in. If it's only going to increase every year, they're just going to keep taking bites out of us on garbage data that we should never been in there.
Mr. Chair, have we actually had an opportunity to have our federal representatives come in and actually discuss this with them to see if they have any?
I sent an email to the federal representative about a year ago, and I never got a response.
I would actually send it.
I sent it to Senator Collins'
I would send a
after
printed
somebody was
letter.
here to visit with us.
I would actually see if we could actually send out another, some type of correspondence to actually have it, for a live meeting. And then if they don't get a response, I guess all of us can actually make a phone call to figure out why we're actually not being represented. Because that will get a lot more traction than the idea of a legal.
Even if they sent one of their people down to actually hear what we're
ahead for me. It's exactly where I think we should be going.
We get an election year this year, so I think people are interested on actually seeing if they can actually make an impact. So.
Yep, I agree.
And I would send it to as many as we can. We don't have to hit one office. We hit all of our representatives.
Yep.
I mean, that's what they're there for, right?
And on a smaller local note, the fact is we have a representative candidate that actually is hoping a town hall session. The fact is there would be a good one there to be able to express to her as a candidate. The fact is that should be some of the recurring things. It is something that's just fundamentally wrong that has cost us money for a mandate that we didn't initiate.
Doesn't add up.
Well, good.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Where are we now, Twyla?
At adjournment.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I thought we were at our meeting tonight. Didn't work out very
I
well.
apologize.
It's over.
By all means, I appreciate everybody's effort. I could see no way to be able to get through this dialogue without a face-to-face with public.
The